Chapter 12:10. From what he could see, there were living beings living here a long time ago, and it was a large gathering point. The number of living beings living here could not be too small, but Lu Yi could not determine whether they were humans or not. He naturally did not know why it was so dilapidated. He could only explore slowly. Just as he was about to do so, he suddenly caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of his eye. Slightly startled, he turned and rushed in that direction. Soon he arrived. In front of him was a broken wall, and something seemed to be pressed down below. He cleaned it up a little, and a dried corpse that had been buried under the ruins for an unknown number of years came into view. It was the corpse of a human. From the looks of it, there were indeed humans living in this domain. This was probably a place similar to a sect, but he did not know when it encountered a great change that led to the destruction of the sect and the extinction of its disciples. From the surface, this dead human was a male, and he was in the prime of his life. His flesh and blood were dry and gray. There were no obvious external injuries on his body. He had been dead for many years, but for some reason his physical body was extremely intact. It was just that his flesh and blood had become withered and shriveled. Lu Yi suddenly felt that this thing was somewhat familiar. He moved closer to the corpse and sized it up with rapt attention. Without any warning, the corpse's eyes suddenly opened, and they looked at each other face to face. The eyes of the dead would become lifeless, and their eyeballs would also be turbid, but the one in front of him was clearly different. Not only were there no turbidity in his eyes, but they were also overflowing with cruelty and viciousness. If one was not mentally prepared for this sudden scene, no matter how many dead people they had seen, they would probably be shocked. Almost at the moment when the eyes opened, the corpse opened his mouth and spat out a cloud of turbid, earthy yellow breath, which covered Lu Ye's head. Then he stretched out one hand, and on his 5 fingers, sharp nails glowing with a cold light, pierced directly toward Lu Ye's chest. It was hard to believe that such a lifeless corpse would make such a violent move. But this lightning-fast attack was firmly blocked by the defensive spiritual pattern on Lu Ye's chest. The sudden flash of the saber directly cut through the corpse's neck without any hindrance. The corpse's movements froze, and the cruelty and viciousness in its eyes quickly dissipated. Soon after, it fell straight down, its head separated from its body. Perhaps it was because Lu Yi had used his spirit qi, or perhaps it was attracted by the aura he exuded, but at the same time that Lu Yi cut down the corpse, a series of noises came from the surrounding ruins. Accompanied by low growls that sounded like the growls of injured beasts, lifeless figures dashed out from all over the place. Like sharks smelling blood, they swarmed in Lu Ye's direction. Lu Yi remained motionless as he brandished the mountain plate saber in his hand. In an instant, saber light flashed with him as the center, and severed limbs and corpses flew everywhere. There were zombies with shriveled bodies and rotting corpses charging at him. The only difference was that the zombies were fighting on their own, while the rotting corpses were fighting in groups. Dense corpse energy intertwined, and soon, the large ruins were shrouded in a cloud of corpse energy. Lu Ye's saber light was swift and fierce, and no one could withstand it. With his current strength, it could be said that he was almost unstoppable in an ordinary mid-level domain. But he soon found the problem, and that was, the more he killed, the more corpses gathered. These corpses had been sleeping in the ruins for who knew how many years. His arrival was like a grain of salt in a pot of hot oil, triggering an extremely violent reaction. Not only were the corpses in the ruins rushing in his direction without fear of death, but the sounds of fighting were also spreading. Instead of falling into a ball, it continued to radiate outwards from Fushi. There was no end to it. Lu Yi understood that continuing to kill like this was not a solution. The saber light changed direction, and he no longer defended himself. Instead, he soared into the sky and charged out. A large number of zombies and rotting corpses chased after him, but how could they catch up? Lu Yi did not fly high. Because he wanted to verify some conjectures in his heart, he had to make some movements. The powerful aura he emitted was the best catalyst. Sure enough, wherever he passed, the seemingly calm area could be swept up by a storm. The corpses that had been dormant for who knew how many years were all startled, and joined the ranks of the pursuers. There was always a large number of pursuers behind him. The more movements he made, the more pursuers would be alarmed. Everywhere he went, the situation was the same. Lu Ye's heart was heavy. The corpse race. To him, this was not an unfamiliar existence. He had once interacted with this race on the broken Wushuang continent. However, among the corpse race he had come into contact with before, the strongest corpse king was only at the peak stage of the Cloud River tier. But in this realm, corpse race with strength comparable to the true lake and divine sea tier could be found everywhere. This was obviously the result of the difference in the level of the world. What made his heart heavy was that the corpse race was not born and bred. This race was different from the blood race. They were usually transformed from humans after they died. The number of corpse race he encountered at this moment was equal to the number of humans who had died. This realm was once dominated by humans, but now it was the world of the corpse race. Because Lu Yi flew all the way here, he did not see half a living person. He didn't even see its shadow. What he encountered was the endless corpse race. This was undoubtedly a very sorrowful situation. If there was a possibility of reconciliation between humans and blood race, then there was an irreconcilable conflict between the corpse race and humans, or even between the corpse race and any other living beings. Because the transformation of the corpse race required the sacrifice of other living beings. Take the broken Wushuang continent for example. If it were not for the divine soldiers of Lu Yi and the others descending from the heavens, and the support of the cultivators of the 9 provinces, sooner or later, the people there would have been slaughtered to the last, and all of them would have been transformed into the corpse race. The corpse race chasing after Lu Yi had never stopped. There were corpse race transformed from humans after they died, and there were also corpse race transformed from demonic beasts after they died. They had been hibernating in this realm for an unknown number of years. Lu Ye's arrival completely broke the peace here. Only when there was no fighting would the corpse race hibernate. In other words, there had been no fighting here for many years. This was undoubtedly a very bad result. Because there was no fighting, it meant that there was no resistance, which meant that the living beings of this realm were very likely to have died out. At the very least, in the area that Lu Yi had explored, the living beings had been extinct for many years. This place was very likely another fragment of the Wushuang continent, or even the main body of the Wushuang continent. The reason for this judgment was naturally because of the corpse race. The broken Wushuang continent that Lu Yi had gone to had corpse race, and there were also corpse race here. There was a very high possibility that there was some connection between them. That broken Wushuang continent was only a fragment of the realm capital, so it could only nurture cultivators of the Cloud River tier. Since there was a fragment, there was naturally a main body. The distance could also support this deduction. After the cultivators of the 9 states rescued the broken Wushuang continent, that fragment of the realm had merged with the Cloud River battlefield after a period of time. In other words, that fragment was very close to the 9 states at that time. And now, although the realm that Lu Yi was in was not close to the 9 states, it was not too far away either. That was why Wuxia could easily find it and leave some arrangements here. Presumably, the Wushuang continent had been broken by some unknown encounter, and the fragment was where Pang Huanin was born. It was drifting in the starry sky, and it was found by Little 9, who then captured it. The main body was still here. There was no way to confirm whether this guess was true or not, unless he explored the entire realm. Lu Yi spent less than half a day exploring the realm within a radius of 50,000 kilometers, but he still did not see a single living being. Everywhere he passed, there was always an endless stream of corpse race. There was no need to continue exploring. Perhaps there were still living beings in this realm, but they were definitely not in this location. Moreover, from the general environment that he had explored, even if there were still living beings in this realm, it would be extremely difficult for them to survive. Lu Ye's figure rose into the air, and his speed instantly increased as well. The corpse race that was chasing behind him quickly lost track of him. He naturally had the ability to kill all of the pursuers, but that was meaningless and would only be a waste of time and energy. His mission this time was to explore this realm. Now that he had a rough understanding of it, he naturally did not want to waste any more time to avoid worrying the 9 states. After getting rid of the pursuers, he immediately activated the hidden regiment and breath control to strengthen himself, and then quietly headed back. Pairs of eyes looked over, and seeing that he had returned safely, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, if Lu Yi really did not return, then the Constellation Realm cultivators would really have to search the entire starry sky for him. Although they would definitely find him, it would definitely take a lot of time. You've worked hard. What's the situation there? Jianghu asked. Maybe the Wushuang continent. The corpse race is rampant, and there is no life there. The Wushuang continent? Corpse race? The group of Constellation Realm cultivators were all stunned. Chapter 12:11. When Lu Yi and the rest were messing around on the broken Wushuang continent, Jianghu and the rest were still in the blood-refining realm's Jade Blood Sacred Land. Wuji and some true Lake Realm cultivators were surprised. Like Lu Yi, they had participated in the encirclement of the Wushuang continent's corpse race. They had a deep impression of this place. In the current Cloud River battlefield, there was a large area that belonged to the broken Wushuang continent. The terrain had not changed much. Facing the puzzled gazes of the Constellation Realm cultivators, Lu Yi briefly explained his actions. Everyone understood. Feng Wujiang said, if Junior Brother's conjecture is correct, then the realm on the other side should be the main body of the Wushuang continent. That's why the corpse race is rampant and there are no living creatures? If my conjecture is correct, that's naturally the case. But I can't be sure if it's the Wushuang continent. Anyway, I didn't find any traces of living creatures in the area I explored. The news wasn't good because the human race on the other side might have been extinct. But it wasn't bad either. If it came, Little Nine could devour the resources of the other side to strengthen itself. Of course, this would have to wait until it devoured Yuandong. There was no reason for it to leave the fatty meat at home and stare at a realm thousands of miles away. When the 9 prefectures' resources gradually strengthened, the devouring speed would also become faster and more efficient. What arrangements did Yu Exin make over there? Feng Wujiang asked. Lu Yi explained what he saw over there, especially Yu Exin's careful arrangements. Everyone understood. Jianghu said, from the looks of it, the corpse race is unlikely. Therefore, even if we don't care about it, the other side won't be much of a hindrance to the 9 prefectures? The reason why they wanted to explore the other side was because they were afraid that Yu Exin's arrangements would bring some unpredictable disaster to the 9 prefectures. Now that they knew there were no living creatures over there, only a group of corpse race, they naturally didn't have to worry too much. Even if the corpse race accidentally discovered the arrangements left behind by Yu Exin, there was a high chance that they wouldn't be able to activate the teleportation array. The most likely thing they would do after coming to the 9 prefectures was to destroy the array unconsciously and break the connection between the 2 realms. The teleportation channel. If that was the case, then the possibility of the corpse race coming to the 9 prefectures would be completely cut off. I have an idea, Pang Zhen suddenly said. Longbow smiled. What a coincidence, I have an idea too. The 2 of them were not the only ones who had such thoughts. Most of the cultivators present also had such thoughts. Old Pang, what do you think? Tell me. Longbai looked at Pang Zhen. They had been competing with each other for so many years. They understood each other very well, so he concluded that he and Pang Zhen had the same idea. Pang Zhen did not decline and said, after the battle of the blood refinement realm, the original structure of the 9 prefectures has been broken. The large-scale confrontation between the 2 camps no longer exists. There are benefits, but there are also disadvantages. The good thing is that we don't have to fight against each other anymore, so fewer people die. The bad thing is that cultivators above the true lake stage, other than their monthly salary, don't have any other channels to obtain battle merits. Spirit Stream stage cultivators could go to the Spirit Stream battlefield, Cloud River stage cultivators could go to the Cloud River battlefield, but true lake stage cultivators and Spirit Sea stage cultivators didn't have a small space suitable for them. It had been a few months since the battle of the blood refining world. Everyone had gained a lot in the blood refining world and had converted their battle merits into their own strength. But the current situation was a little awkward. The true lake stage cultivators and some divine ocean stage cultivators who needed battle merits became a little idle. In the past, the two camps fought fiercely at various passes. But now, such a situation would not occur. People could not be idle. Once they were idle, problems would arise. Especially for cultivators who pursued higher cultivation and stronger strength. Recently, there were already some true lake stage and divine ocean stage cultivators who could not hold back and had deliberately created some conflicts. But the scope was not big, so it was still manageable. But if they left it alone, in the long run, morality would collapse and the situation would become chaotic. By then, the 9 prefectures would probably return to the situation where the two camps fought on a large scale. The key point was that this matter could not be controlled. Everyone wanted to obtain more battle merits for cultivation. How could they control it? They could not say that the constellation stage cultivators did not need battle merits, so they could restrict others' actions and thoughts. Cultivators as a group would never be able to settle down. No one knew the situation of cultivators in other domains, but the cultivators of the 9 prefectures had always been fighting like this. Although the battle of the blood refinement realm was fought to one's heart's content, it ended too quickly. It could not be helped. Because the blood refinement realm was charging towards the 9 prefectures, they had to end the battle quickly. Moreover, if the battle between the two domains dragged on for too long, it would be a form of torture for the mortals of the blood refinement realm. Those injured blood race cultivators who needed blood would all have their eyes on them. Due to various reasons, most of the true lake and spirit ocean cultivators had nowhere to vent their energy within the 9 continents. They needed more battle merits for their cultivation, but their monthly salary was insufficient. The cultivation method of drawing on the heaven's secrets, which was unique to those above the true lake stage, was not efficient enough. Therefore, if there was a place where cultivators above the true lake stage could vent their excess energy and gain battle merits at the same time, it would undoubtedly be a popular choice. The appearance of the Wuxia continent's domain was just right. From this point, the 9 prefectures really had to thank Yuexin. They had to erect a monument for him. It was also at this moment that Lu Yi suddenly realized what Yang Qing meant when he said that Yuexin had sent a huge gift to the 9 prefectures. Yang Qing's attainments in array Dao were not high, so he did not realize that Yuexin's arrangement was mainly for the 9 prefectures to devour the foundation of the Wuxia continent. However, he had been suppressed in the 9 prefectures for 10,000 years. He knew the cultivation and survival methods of the 9 prefectures like the back of his hand. Naturally, he knew what choice the 9 prefectures would make once the Wuxia continent entered the eyes of the 9 prefectures' cultivators. They were all people who had cultivated for many years. There were many things that did not need to be pointed out. Once Pangjin started, everyone knew what he was thinking. It coincided with the thoughts of the majority. If that's the case, then the Wuxia continent is indeed a treasure land. The corpse race that was spread all over the Wuxia continent were mobile battle merits that the 9 prefectures' cultivators desired. The battle of the blood refinement realm was fought too quickly. In just a few months, the blood race was exterminated. Even though the 9 prefectures' cultivators who participated in the battle earned a lot, it was still a one-time deal. The Wuxia continent was an undeveloped place. It was probably enough for the 9 prefectures' cultivators to torment. Although it is a land of treasures, it is not a place that can be plundered continuously. As Lu Yi said, the corpse clan is transformed from other creatures. They do not have the ability to reproduce, so killing one means one less. One day, the corpse clan will be exterminated. Indeed, but it should be able to last for a long time. It may be decades or hundreds of years, or even longer. The reason why the battle of the blood refinement realm was won so smoothly was mainly because Lu Yi restrained all the saint seeds. Jianghu Hong and a large group of 9th Order Divine Sea Realm cultivators also contributed. However, these people did not need battle merits, so if they really wanted to cause trouble on the Wuxia continent, they would not be mobilized. Only true Lake Realm cultivators and some Divine Sea Realm cultivators who needed battle merits would be mobilized. Moreover, in the battle of the Blood Refinement Realm, a large number of Cloud River Realm cultivators participated. On the Wushuang continent, Cloud River Realm cultivators would not participate. They could do whatever they wanted. In this way, in terms of numbers and strength, they were far inferior to the expedition to the Blood Refinement Realm. It would take a long time to rely on this group of people to clean up the entire Wushuang continent. At the very least, during this period, the focus of the conflicts above the True Lake Realm would be shifted to the outside world, and there would be no more internal problems. As for decades or hundreds of years later, perhaps by then, the foundation of the 9 continents would increase greatly and cultivation would become easier. What would the cultivators' desire for battle merits change? There was no way to predict what would happen in such a long time. Right now, they could only take one step at a time. We need the cooperation of the 9 continents, Tianji. As Longbow spoke, he looked at Lu Yi and grinned. Is there a problem? The overall calculation of battle merits had always been operated by Tianji. The Wushuang continent was not the 9 continents, so if they really wanted to conquer the Wushuang continent, the cooperation of Tianji was indispensable. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and nodded, no problem. It was nothing more than sending a few Tianji pillars over. As long as the cultivators were within the range of the Tianji pillars, they would be able to obtain the corresponding battle merits by killing the corpse race. Then it's settled? Jianghu looked around. No one had any objections. Although they had all advanced to the constellation realm, they were still from the 9 continents. It was impossible for them to be indifferent to the future of the 9 continents. If they really did not care, they would not have returned when they knew that the 9 continents had been invaded by experts. With their current ability to traverse the starry sky, they could have run far away. They believed that Wuxia would not chase after them one by one. It was precisely because they cared about the 9 continents that they ran back the moment they received the news. None of them were left behind. After the discussion was settled, they immediately began to prepare. Since they wanted to use the corpse race on the Wushuang continent as a source of battle merits, the first thing they had to do was naturally to establish a stronghold on the Wushuang continent. Only then would it be convenient for the 9 continents' cultivators to travel. There was no way to choose the location of the stronghold. They could only choose the ruins where the exit of the passage was located. This was reasonable because the stronghold not only had to ensure the safety of the 9 continents' cultivators, but it also had to guard the transportation passage so that the corpse race would not accidentally bump into it and destroy it. Therefore, the first batch of cultivators to go over had to be capable of fighting. Only then would they be able to resist the corpse race's attack before the stronghold was established. Lu Yi was selected without a doubt. He had investigated the situation on the other side, so he had a slightly better understanding of the situation there. Moreover, something like the cooperation of Tianji would have to be done by him. Feng Wujiang was also among them. He had not advanced to the constellation realm for the time being. He had enough reputation and strength. If there was a need for an expert to oversee the stronghold, then it would be none other than him. Chapter 12:12. Never in his wildest dreams would he have thought that Tanjia's experience would be experienced a second time in such a short period of time. Seeing this, the morale of the cultivators who were eager for battle merits was boosted. They were ready to go, and they thought maliciously in their hearts. Who knew what kind of scene it would be after they had personally experienced it? Originally, many people had gathered at the Li Plains to set up the Great Array. Most of them had dabbled in Array Dao or were proficient in Array Dao. The first group was still this group of people, because if they wanted to build a reliable stronghold, they had to be protected by many great arrays. Of course, this matter was not forced. It was all voluntary. As expected, no one retreated at this time. Everyone wanted to participate in this operation. All of them had experienced the battle of the blood refining world and reaped enough benefits from it. Now that they had another chance to go on an expedition to another world, naturally, none of them would want to miss it, especially the True Lake Stage and Spirit Sea Stage cultivators. For a long time to come, the Wushuang continent would be their battlefield. Moreover, for the corpse race, killing one meant there would be one less of them. Naturally, it was first come, first serve. Lu Yi took the lead. Before they set out, People from the Tianji Business Alliance had already sent over a few Tianji pillars under Little Nine's secret orders. What Lu Yi needed to do was to find a suitable location and place these Heaven's Fate pillars. When the time came, cultivators who killed corpse race cultivators within the range of these Heaven's Fate pillars would be able to obtain merit records. Under everyone's gaze, Lu Yi once again crashed into that solid vortex. Next was Feng Wujiang, followed by a group of Spirit Ocean Realm cultivators. After the Spirit Ocean Realm cultivators all passed through, it was time for the True Lake Realm and Cloud River Realm cultivators. In the circular space deep underground, one figure after another appeared. Other than Lu Yi, who was already mentally prepared and had a calm expression, even people like eldest senior brother's face turned slightly pale. There were even people who swayed left and right after appearing embarrassed. To the cultivators of the 9 prefectures, the most common method of teleportation was to borrow the power of Tianji's teleportation. The entire process was smooth and smooth. Even when they were teleported from the 9 prefectures to the blood refining realm, it was the same. There was no uncomfortable experience at all. However, the teleportation this time had absolutely nothing to do with being smooth and smooth. Not only did the entire process feel very long, it really felt like he had been swallowed into the stomach of some exotic beast and was being transported through the intestines of that beast. Many warriors at the Spirit Sea realm felt uncomfortable, and at the same time, they also felt that Lu Yi was too mean. It was such a terrible experience, but he didn't warn them before. Obviously, he had the mentality of tearing other people's umbrellas apart even if he had been drenched in the rain. But very soon, they no longer felt uncomfortable, because the True Lake Stage cultivators who followed closely behind performed even worse. As soon as they appeared, they rushed to the side and vomited. The old fellows quietly watched this scene, their minds much more balanced. Lu Yi took the lead and flew up the passageway. Everyone followed closely behind. Soon, they rushed out of the dried-up ancient well and arrived above the ruins. A warrior at the Spirit Sea realm spread out his psychic power and found something. He dashed towards a direction. When he came back, he was carrying a zombie with sharp teeth and claws. The zombie's strength wasn't low, it was at the True Lake stage. However, under the restraint of the Spirit Sea realm, it was like an enraged mad dog. No matter how hard it struggled, it couldn't break free. So this is the corpse race. Many Spirit Sea realm cultivators looked over in amazement. They felt that the universe was vast and full of strange things. The blood race in the blood refinement realm was already an eye-opener for them. But the blood race was still alive. When they were cut, they would cry out in pain. When they were killed, they would bleed. These corpse race members were clearly dead, but they could still move like living people. This was very strange. To be honest, if they hadn't heard Lu Yi talk about the characteristics of this race, they wouldn't have paid much attention to it even if they saw it lying on the ground. They would have thought that it was a corpse that had been dead for many years. A large group of Spirit Sea realm cultivators watched with great interest. Those who couldn't squeeze in had already been mobilized to study it. The corpse race members in the ruins had basically been lured away by Lu Yi. Only a few small cats and dogs were left, and they were all quickly caught. The True Lake Stage cultivators who had rushed over later watched as the corpse race changed. Turning into water, they were completely unaware of this moment. Groups of people gathered together to discuss and comment on each other's appearance. From time to time, roars could be heard from these people. Feng Wujiang was a little helpless. He said to Lu Yi, "If junior apprentice brother has the time, it's best to imprint the various characteristics and information of the corpse race into a jade slip. When the time comes, it will spread the information of the corpse race to the cultivators from the 9 continents. This will also let them be on guard." Lu Yi nodded. That's not a problem. He had also thought of this matter. The cultivators from the 9 continents came here to kill the corpse race and obtain battle merits. If they were really killed by the corpse race because of their lack of strength, then there was nothing they could do. If their skills were inferior, then they would willingly admit defeat. But if they suffered casualties because of unfavorable information, then it would be an unnecessary loss. There were still many things to pay attention to when dealing with the corpse race. First was the problem of corpse poison. Every corpse race member had corpse poison. Once this thing entered the body of a cultivator, it was a very troublesome matter. It required a special antidote pill or the help of a medical cultivator to expel it. It was very difficult to cleanse it completely with just the cultivator's own strength. Once the corpse poison accumulated too much in the body, the cultivator would inevitably transform into a corpse race member. Moreover, in terms of type, the corpse race was divided into two types: zombies and rotting corpses. The former was basically equivalent to the body cultivator of the human race. Generally, they were the type that fought alone. Rotting corpses were a little more troublesome. They had some traces of magic cultivation and beast taming schools. However, they did not control any demonic beasts, but the same kind of corpse race. Moreover, most of the corpse race did not have intelligence and only knew how to act based on instinct. However, some of the corpse race did have intelligence. Other than their physical characteristics being slightly different from the human race, they were basically no different from the human race. Tu Lu Yi had already discovered this when he was searching the surrounding area. Among the corpses that were chasing him, there were many corpses that displayed high intelligence. If he wasn't fast enough, he would have been surrounded and chased down. All of these were things that the cultivators needed to pay attention to when dealing with the corpse race. The cultivators of the 9 continents came here because those who killed the corpse race were not there to add more people to the corpse race. Also, the group of Divine Sea Realm cultivators studied the corpse race for a while. They did not forget about the proper business. Apart from 2 of the captured corpse race members who were killed as a test, the others were all imprisoned in place by the group's methods. They were not kept for viewing, but mainly left here to let the cultivators of the 9 continents see for themselves what the corpse race was like. The group of True Lake Realm and Divine Sea Realm cultivators began to clean up the ruins, preparing to build the first stronghold of the 9 continents here. Fortunately, the commotion caused by Lu Ye's arrival had attracted the nearby corpse race away, so the whole process was not disturbed too much. Occasionally, some corpse race members who wandered into this place by mistake were quickly killed. While they were busy here, in the 9 continents, the news about the Peerless Continent and the corpse race was also rapidly spreading. In the 9 continents, the True Lake Realm and Divine Sea Realm cultivators who had long been unable to endure the thirst rush towards Liyuan. Even some Cloud River Realm cultivators who heard the commotion were eager to move. In the end, they were unceremoniously stopped by the True Lake Realm cultivators of their own sections. According to the True Lake Realm cultivators, the Cloud River Realm cultivators would go to the Cloud River battlefield to cause trouble. Right now, the 9 continents had finally found a place suitable for True Lake Realm and Divine Sea Realm cultivators to display their strength. Who knew how long it would last, so why would the Cloud River Realm cultivators come to snatch it? There was only so much fat meat, and the more a Cloud River Realm cultivator ate, the less a Cloud River Realm cultivator would eat. In terms of the attitude of this matter, all the sects in the 9 continents that received accurate information made the same response. They forbade their Cloud River Realm cultivators from setting foot in Liyuan, and even more so, did not allow them to enter the Peerless Continent. It had to be said that in terms of cognition and handling of certain matters, cultivators had a natural affinity. At the same time, in the 9 continents, the spirit light from the heavens that had stopped for more than 2 months started again. Previously, Little 9 was hiding from Wuxia, not daring to show himself easily, so this opportunity for the 9th Order Divine Sea Realm to break through the shackles could only be temporarily suspended. Now that Wuxia was dead, the opportunity naturally had to continue. The number of Constellation Realm cultivators born in the 9 continents slowly increased. Most people once again embarked on the path to explore the starry sky. Firstly, they were searching for spirit jades for cultivation. Secondly, they were searching for the location of the Peerless Continent in the starry sky. The Constellation Realm cultivators had no way of entering the Peerless Continent through the transmission channel, so they could only rely on flying. Although the starry sky was vast and without a target, and it would be very difficult to search like this, who knew they might be able to find it? It was not to say that they wanted to do anything to the corpse race of the Peerless Continent. Even if they wanted to, the true Lake Realm and Spirit Sea Realm cultivators of the 9 continents would not agree. Even the Cloud River Realm cultivators were not allowed to set foot in Liyuan, for fear that they would snatch something away, let alone the Constellation Realm cultivators above the Spirit Sea Realm. However, at the very least, they had to figure out the specific location of the Peerless Continent. Moreover, this kind of search was only an incidental part of the process of searching for spirit jades, and was not the main goal, so it could not be said to be a waste of time and energy. Only a small portion of the Constellation Realm cultivators, led by Jianghu, stayed behind. They had no choice but to stay behind, because there was still Yang Qing in the 9 continents. Before they completely understood Yang Qing's attitude towards the 9 continents, the Constellation Realm cultivators were not at ease to leave. Although in the face of an absolute gap in strength, there was no use for them to stay behind. At the very least, they could live and die together with the 9 continents. There were not many Constellation Realm cultivators who stayed behind, only 5 or 6. They were thinking of a way to find traces of Yang Qing and were prepared to have an open and honest discussion with him, but after searching here and there was no trace of Yang Qing. It was as if such a supreme elite had disappeared into thin air. Thus, everyone knew that Yang Qing was unwilling to see them. Otherwise, with his ability, there was probably no one in the whole 9 continents who could hide from his perception if there was any movement. There was nothing that could be done about this. Thinking it over, they were afraid that there would only be a chance if Lu Yi made an appearance. No matter what, there was still a favor between Lu Yi and Yang Qing that had helped him escape. Previously, it was also Yang Qing who had transmitted sound to Lu Yi about the formation on the Liyuan. If others could not find it, perhaps Lu Yi could? What? Chapter 12-13. Lu Yi had long wanted to talk to Yang Qing again, but after Yu Xian's death, he went to the Wushuang continent and had not been free. Now that the stronghold on the Wushuang continent had been built and the few Tianji pillars that he brought over had been placed in suitable positions, there was basically nothing for him to do here. Other cultivators might be lacking in battle merits, but he was not. His accumulated battle merits had long exceeded 7 digits. He dared not say that no one would be able to surpass him in the future, but it was definitely unprecedented. Therefore, after receiving the news, he immediately returned to the 9 states from the Wushuang continent. The Tian continent was one of the 9 major continents of the 9 states. Although it was named Tian, it was not much different from the other continents. It did not mean that the entire 9 states was centered on it. For those mortals who did not know much, the saying that the sky was round and the earth was round might be deeply rooted in people's hearts, and even many cultivators with low cultivation levels thought so. However, the 9 states was actually a sphere. This was something that Lu Yi saw clearly in the starry sky. For such a spherical planet, any place could be the center, so there was no such thing as a center. Lu Yi arrived at the Tian continent through the teleportation of the Tianji pillar. Somewhere in the direction of the Tianji Chamber of Commerce, he leaped up and sped all the way. Although he had returned from the blood-refining realm, Little Nine still maintained his right to teleport the Tianji pillar, which was the only preferential treatment he could get from Little Nine at this stage. Half a day later, he arrived at a spiritual peak. From the map, this spiritual peak belonged to a Tianyun clan, but it was not part of the clan's foundation and could barely be considered as the clan's sphere of influence. Just like Mount Tunshan to the Jade Blood Sect. In theory, the entire Mount Tunshan belonged to the Jade Blood Sect, but in reality, the Jade Blood Sect's foundation was only a few spiritual peaks, or perhaps more, but there was no way to include the entire Fragrant Mountain for the time being. The spiritual peak was nameless, and compared to the other spiritual peaks nearby, there was nothing special about it. Originally, this place was deserted, and even the cultivators of the Tianyun clan would not deliberately come to such a place. At most, they would just pass by. However, just a while ago, the cultivators of the Tianyuan clan who passed by were surprised to find that there was a small wooden house on the spiritual peak, and there were cultivators coming and going. The Tianyun clan naturally would not leave it alone, and sent cultivators to check and confirm that it was an itinerant cultivator of the Cloud River realm who had settled here. The sects of the 9 prefectures, big and small, treated the loose cultivators as a group. His attitude wasn't that of a representative of the capital, so he didn't make things difficult for him. After all, he was just a Cloud River tier cultivator. Since they had taken a fancy to this nameless spiritual mountain, it was common for them to stay here. However, they were warned not to commit any crimes and not to disturb the lives of the mortals nearby. Naturally, the young man agreed and settled down here. When Lu Yi arrived, he immediately saw a figure dressed in green, leisurely lying on a self-made recliner under the shade of a tree, leisurely enjoying the cool air. Next to him was a snow-white rabbit, its eyes brimming with tears as it looked at the late Lu Yi, its eyes full of grievances. Little Nine's voice sounded in his ear, "Lu Yi, why are you only here now?" She looked like she had been waiting for him for a long time. Lu Yi gave Yang Kai a calm look before stepping forward and bowing respectfully, "Senior Yang." The cultivators of the Heavenly Cloud Capital knew that this cultivator was only at the first level of the Star Metal Arts, but they didn't know that he was the strongest warrior in the 9 provinces. Even a Sunshine Realm cultivator like Yu Exen had his neck broken and his head twisted off. If they knew, they wouldn't know how to feel. Yang Qing closed his eyes to rest, as if he didn't hear anything. Lu Yi didn't mind and took out a table, a chair, and a set of tea brewing tools from his storage space. He sat down with his back facing him. The others couldn't find Yang Qing because he had no intention of meeting them. For a powerful person like Yang Qing, if he didn't want to, no one in the 9 states could break in. Lu Yi was able to find this place only because of Little Nine's tip. However, if the other party really didn't want to see him, he could have just left. Since he stayed, it was a good start. Lu Yi's movements were meticulous as he boiled the tea. Lu Yi wasn't proficient in the way of tea, but in this situation, it didn't seem right not to order some tea. So he did. After a while, tea was served, and Lu Yi was still respectful. "Senior, please enjoy." Yang Qing opened his eyes and sat up straight. He picked up the tea and drank it in one gulp. Lu Yi was amused. This guy didn't seem to be proficient in the way of tea. Those who truly understood tea couldn't possibly understand it as well as wine. If you have something to say, then say it. If you have nothing to say, then scram. Don't disturb this seat. Yang Qing didn't have the slightest awareness of being short-mouthed. His tone wasn't polite at all. This made Lu Yi feel a sense of closeness. The person in front of him didn't seem to be a powerful dragon, but rather an extremely senior. Lu Yi eagerly filled Yang Qing's cup. Yang Qing narrowed his eyes. "Kid, do you think that I don't understand the way of tea at all?" Lu Yi was a little stunned. "What do you mean?" Yang Qing snorted coldly. "Everyone says that when the wine is full, the toast is full. People say that when the tea is full, the tea you poured for this seat is overflowing. Are you trying to drive me away?" Lu Yi looked wronged. "That's impossible. Senior just helped the 9 regions escape from the disaster. The 9 regions can't even thank you enough. How can we chase Senior away?" Junior was just about to suggest to the major sects to set up a long life memorial tablet for Senior. Morning and evening, 3 kowtows in the morning and evening. Generations will revere you and your descendants will worship you. Yang Qing looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. "Do you know that the dragon race has an innate divine ability? That is, we can distinguish whether a person's words are true or false." Lu Yi looked at him calmly. "Junior's words come from the bottom of my heart. Every word is sincere. There is no falsehood." In the end, he was still a little doubtful. Does the dragon race really have such an innate divine ability? Yang Qing said in annoyance, "That's the innate divine ability of Xieji." Lu Yi knew that he had been fooled. No wonder. He was old. How would he know when he heard about it? What innate divine ability did the dragon race have? Thinking about it, he asked, "What is the dragon race's innate divine ability?" Yang Qing said leisurely, "Time." 3 time? Lu Yi was confused. What kind of innate divine ability was this? Then he saw Yang Qing raise her hand to cover him. In that instant, Lu Yi felt as if his thoughts had slowed down by many times. Yang Qing's movements weren't fast. Instead, they seemed sluggish, but he couldn't avoid them no matter what he did. "Return." This was an absolutely torturous feeling. Just think about it. If he was affected by such an innate divine ability in battle, no matter how many lives he had, it would not be enough. It seemed like an instant, but also like a long time. Only then did Lu Yi come back to his senses. His face was full of thoughts. His expression was solemn. Senior's cultivation is so profound. Junior is in awe of it. This was a sincere sentence. Moreover, Yang Qing's actions just now should not have much to do with his cultivation. That was the display of the dragon race's innate divine ability. In other words, even if Yang Qing's cultivation was the same as his, he could still make him feel that way. Changing the topic, he said, "Senior is such a powerful and noble person. Isn't it too much of a grievance to live in a small place like the 9 states? It's said that dragons soar to the 9 heavens, but the 9 states is ultimately just a small pond. It's still okay to raise some fish and shrimps." Yang Qing interrupted him. "In the end, you still want to chase me away." Lu Yi lied through his teeth. "No, absolutely not. It's the fortune of the 9 states that Senior can oversee the 9 states. If anyone dares to chase you away, I will wring his head off." He sighed. "However, Senior, you still have to consider the concerns of us small shrimps. Junior has come here for no other reason than to know Senior's attitude towards the 9 states. There was no point in beating around the bush. In the end, he could only lay it out. This was also the helplessness of the weak. If you say that you are unhappy with the misery of being suppressed for 10,000 years and want to destroy the 9 states to vent your anger, then hurry up and do it. It will save everyone from being on tenterhooks. If you care about old ties and are willing to protect the 9 states, then the billions of people in the 9 states will be deeply grateful. As for what it is, Senior has to give us a definite answer." The attitude of the 9 states was indeed not to chase Yang Qing away. Who could chase away an expert like him? It was just that everyone knew Yang Qing's attitude. Protect the 9 states? Yang Qing sneered. "In your dreams. Why should I protect the 9 states for you? Previously, killing Yuexin was just a return of courtesy for letting me out. The reason why I'm still here is just to recuperate. When I'm almost fully recovered, I'll leave. So, you can rest assured that I won't do anything to 9 regions." Hearing this, Lu Ye's heart that had been hanging in the air finally relaxed. Although from their previous interactions, Yang Qing did not have much malice towards the current 9 states, he could not be sure. At this moment, since he had said so, then it could not be wrong. Thinking about it, the gap between Yang Qing and the 9 states was equivalent to the gap between Lu Yi, who was in the divine ocean realm, and ordinary people. Would he go and bully those ordinary people at will now? Not to mention that the ideals he had always had did not allow him to do so. Even if he did, there would be no sense of accomplishment. Senior wants to recover. If there is anything the 9 states can help with, please do not hesitate to tell us. This Junior and the many cultivators of the 9 states will not shirk our duty." These were polite words. Lu Yi also knew that he could not help much. If he had advanced to the constellation realm, perhaps he could have gone to the starry sky to find some spiritual jades for Yang Qing. However, he was only in the divine ocean realm and could not even set foot in the starry sky. How could he help? Saying a few beautiful words would not cause him to lose a piece of meat. Yang Qing immediately said, "If you say so, then I won't be polite." Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat, and he suddenly had a bad feeling. Although he did not know what was going to happen, he had a feeling that he had fallen into a trap. The Dragon Clan expert in front of him had probably been waiting for this moment to come to an agreement with him. Words that had been spoken were like water that had been poured out. He could only brace himself and ask, "But I wonder how this Junior can help." Chapter 12:14. It doesn't make sense. Jianghu Hong and the others may be able to help him a little, but what can I, a divine sea realm cultivator, do? Communicating with such an old guy who has lived for who knows how many years, it really doesn't matter if you have a few extra thoughts. In the future, I will never casually promise others anything. Lu Yi secretly remembered this in his heart. Yang Qing glanced at him up and down, 7th order divine sea realm, A little bit worse. If I give you 10 days, it won't be a problem for you to break through to the 8th order, right? Lu Yi really wanted to say that there was a problem. But when he met Yang Qing's smiling eyes, he knew in his heart that this matter couldn't be avoided. Although Yang Qing had been in a trapped state, he was not ignorant of some things in the 9 states. Perhaps his understanding was not comprehensive enough, but he knew the general situation. Especially Lu Yi, as early as the first time they met, Yang Qing had paid attention to him. How could he not know Lu Yi's cultivation speed? Moreover, he could tell at a glance what state Lu Yi was in at the moment. Giving him 10 days was already a generous amount of time. "Senior, what do you want me to do?" Lu Yi asked worriedly. "Go to Puxing first. You will know later." Tang Qing was so fond of Jiaoche Department's Yang Tai. Returning to the main body of the tree, the east of the ocean is definitely a place that a divine sea realm cultivator can set foot in carefully. Yang Qing shook his head. Sure enough, not having an elder at home is like not having a treasure. There doesn't seem to be such a sect. Why, did he get the inheritance left behind by others? Lu Yi asked. But the corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. Why are the cultivators of the 4 states all like this? Looking for something bad and instinctively wanting to snatch it? Strikesure was waiting for me, looking at his hands behind his back. On the small tree in Najing behind the Zhongshe line, he nodded with satisfaction. It's not wrong. Yang Tangqing suddenly thought of something. During the later 4 prefectures period, was there a sect called the Sword Instrument Sect? Lu Yi nodded. Yes. Yu Ying answered, planning to find an opportunity to put the artifact refining experience from Sword Tool Sect in the treasure vault. In this way, all the artifact masters in the 4 states would not exchange for it, which could also be considered as helping Sword Tool Sect. The artifact refining's artifact refining. What are we going to do? She asked. What are we going to do? To snatch the real reincarnation tree? Yang Qing didn't want to wait for her to sell everything, but after waiting for a while, she still didn't get anything. She reacted, that tree was left behind 10,000 years later? This was also the reason why 4th-year students knew that there were no spirit jades in the upper 7 and lower 8 realms. Yu Ying nodded. I received some of his legacy. However, in comparison, there wasn't much of a difference between the two. Yang Qing could not imagine why Lu Yi would suddenly tell her about this matter. However, the only thing I could do right now was to listen in silence. In fact, according to Yang Qing's perception, the small tree was more than 100 years old. It was small and low enough, but it was also grand and ancient enough. As if seeing through Yu Ying's doubts, Yu Ying explained, there are no treasures in the starry sky. They were born with the heaven and earth, and there are 7 of them. Each of them has unfathomable abilities. None of the treasures is called the reincarnation tree. Don't think too much about it. The tree behind you isn't the treasure. It's just a clone of the treasure. Basically, the realms in the starry sky don't have such a clone of the reincarnation tree. It's not only the 4 states that don't have it. The tree behind you was obtained from the reincarnation tree by the ancient ancestors of the 4 states. It was Lu Yi who said that the reincarnation tree didn't have a main body or a clone. That was to avoid reminding Yang Qing of her talent tree. Big 4 said matter-of-factly, it's useless to tell him. To go to the main body of the reincarnation tree, one needs to be accompanied by a sufficiently weak person. You can't accompany him there. Lu Yi was helpless. She could only fly to a spiritual peak in the distance and cultivate quietly. As for whether or not the existence of the talent tree would be exposed, it didn't matter. The talent tree was just a relatively powerful inheritance. It might be very attractive to cultivators with low cultivation, but it was probably useless to Yang Qing. What he said made sense. It was precisely because there was something that didn't exist that the cultivators of the 4 states paid attention to it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the base of a small sect outside. The remaining 7 days were used to consolidate her cultivation. She dragged it out until the 10 days were up before returning to find Lu Yi. In such a top-level realm without any children, how could the strongest sects there be any weaker? Moreover, the talent tree's cultivation had always been hidden. Yu Ying might not be able to discover anything. When I condensed my clone, the talent tree would form a root. Now that the entire talent tree had split into 7, could it be counted as the talent tree having a clone? One Big Four replied, "Of course you know." Although the weaklings of the 4 states have all died, there was still a lot of information left behind. How come I've heard him mention this before? If Lu Yi had done it in front of me, Yang Qing probably would have known about the secrets of the reincarnation tree's clone. As for the sword Dao, I can only rely on Thought Moon Immortal. Back in the sword instrument sect, you were the one who inherited the sword Dao inheritance. Snatching the reincarnation tree, that brat really dared to think about it. Can this thing be snatched? Moreover, a mere divine ocean realm cultivator dared to talk so casually. It really made me laugh. My sword gourd doesn't have much experience in refining weapons. It wasn't brought out from the sword instrument sect's secret realm. Back then, I only knew that the sword instrument sect was an ancient sect. I didn't know which era it came from. Then, withered leaves fell from the sky. The small tree that was full of vitality also withered like an old man on the verge of death. Bad appearance counted. 2 dodging was fine. Extending your head was a knife. Retracting your head was also a knife. 3 perhaps in the future, when I go to the starry sky, I won't have the chance to confirm this because the starry sky is vast enough. In the later 4 states, there were many weak cultivators in the cultivation world of the 4 states. This was an era when the name of the 4 states shook the starry sky. The 4 states were so weak that even after 10,000 years, there were still no records of them among the small races and small ancient realms in the starry sky. 10,000 years have passed. The glorious sects of the past are long gone. However, in the human emperor sect, there isn't a single ordinary thing left behind. As Lu Yi spoke, he turned around and looked at the small tree behind him. 3 as he spoke, he raised his hand and pressed it under the small tree. He knew what kind of power he was using. The small tree suddenly shook slightly. Then, the green leaves on the tree stopped turning from green to yellow. It seemed that in an instant, the reincarnation tree's clone had passed through a very young age. Now, it seems that the sword instrument sect is very small. It might also be a remnant of the later 4 states. Yang Qing clicked his tongue in wonder. He looked up and down at the small tree, but he couldn't see anything ordinary. Logically speaking, since it was left behind 10,000 years later, the small tree must be extremely ancient. Moreover, after 10,000 years, the cultivators of the 4 states should have discovered that it was normal for the small tree. Back then, the human emperor of the human emperor sect saw my dragon in the starry sky and wanted to snatch me away. In the end, the 2 of them became acquainted with each other. Yang Qing said, "What does the junior need your help with? You can't say it now, right?" The feeling of not having anything to do is very bad. Since I've received the favor of the legacy, I have no obligation to help him spread the legacy. Lu Yi admonished. In this way, there was no similarity between the talent tree and the reincarnation tree. In the 4 states, even if my clone was far away, he wouldn't be able to sense anything. However, there was absolutely no limit to the distance he could sense. Yang Qing was still able to determine what the limit was for the time being. Yang Qing had broken through to the first-order divine sea realm during the expedition to the blood-refining world. Before that, he had refined a small amount of saint blood. Every drop of saint blood contained a very small amount of energy. The process of refining saint blood was actually equivalent to the accumulation of one's foundation. It was just that the efficiency was not as fast as cultivating in the 4 states. The falling leaves didn't fall to the ground. Instead, they turned into a thick yellow halo that gathered and surged. Therefore, no matter how much he cultivated before returning to the 4 states, his cultivation was already close to the 4th-order divine sea realm. Someone said with a bad temper, "He's going to snatch something, but he's going to snatch the reincarnation tree." Lu Yi looked at me meaningfully. "Don't worry. What you want him to do must be something he can do. If he can do it, you will only force him to do it." After spending 10 days, a total of 7 days, I still hadn't made a breakthrough. Yu Ying's eyes flashed with reminiscence. Second, that place is the strongest sect in the 4 states after 10,000 years. It's the foundation of the sect. After a pause, I asked, "Why did you choose to cultivate outside?" The reincarnation tree's clone, no matter how far it was, could open a passage to the mainland at the end of the previous reincarnation, but my clone hadn't reached that level. Yang Qing looked surprised and sent a message to Big Four. "Do you know about the reincarnation tree?" Yang Qing suddenly understood. She only felt that she had opened up a small world. What kind of reincarnation tree was that? If Lu Yi mentioned it, I was afraid it would be a long time before I learned about it. Lu Ye's voice came. "There is no magical connection between the reincarnation tree's clone and the main body. That connection doesn't weaken even if they are separated by hundreds of millions of miles. That's why the reincarnation tree's clone in the 4 states doesn't have an ordinary ability. When it withers and retreats to the previous reincarnation, it can open a passage to the reincarnation tree's main body." Human Emperor Sect, remember that name. That is the name of the strongest sect in the 4 states. The real reincarnation tree reincarnates once every 10,000 years. From existence to non-existence, from large to small, it evolves the true essence of the universe. That's why he saw that it wasn't ordinary. That's because the truth is that it isn't 100 years old. Before 100 years, it will wither and grow again. But it didn't last long. I refined almost half of the sacred blood in the entire blood refining realm. The majority of it was refined because of my clone, so I didn't give it up. Chapter 12:15. The thick yellow halo gathered and twisted, quickly condensing into a ball. Yang Qing reached out to grab Lu Yi and brought him to the ball of light. At the same time, he warned him, "When you get there, don't reveal that you are from 9 regions. If you need to report your origin, just say that you are from 9 heaven world." 9 regions had been hidden in the starry sky for tens of thousands of years and had long disappeared from the eyes of the major races and top realms. At this stage, the name of 9 regions was not suitable to be mentioned. If the races and realms that had joined forces to deal with 9 regions knew, they would definitely search the entire starry sky. At that time, there might not be no risk of exposure. The thick yellow halo dissipated. On the nameless peak, a withered old tree appeared in front of the wooden house. Yang Qing and Lu Ye's figures had already disappeared. Little Nine, who looked like a little white rabbit, rolled his eyes and instantly turned into a ray of light that shot into the sky. Mouth, it was not easy to finally get rid of the claws of the dragon race. Although he knew that the other party would come back, Little Nine had already made up his mind that next time, he would not be caught so easily. Somewhere in the distant starry sky, in a strange small space, Yang Qing's figure suddenly appeared. Even with his cultivation, he could not figure out the mechanism of this teleportation across millions of miles. This was no longer something that could be done by human strength. This was a unique connection between the reincarnation tree's main body and its clones. Just like him. This was also the innate ability of the reincarnation tree. But in the next moment, his face sank. Because Lu Yi, who should have appeared beside him, had disappeared. In a strange and multicolored small space like a condensed starry sky, Yang Qing said in a deep voice, "Old Shu, what is the meaning of this?" Dragon's might filled the air. It was completely different from the dragon's might that filled the air when Lu Yi was on the dragon throne. The dragon's might of a real dragon was incomparably strong and violent, almost condensing into a substance. Under such terrifying might, the condensed starry sky began to distort and tremble. There was no problem with the teleportation. If there was a problem, he would not have appeared here. But Lu Yi had disappeared. There was only one explanation. During the teleportation process, the reincarnation tree had done something that he could not detect. This had nothing to do with cultivation. This was the reincarnation tree's home ground. If the other party wanted to do something, no one would be able to detect it. Yang Qing was a little angry. No matter what the reason was, it was too outrageous for the people he had brought to disappear without even giving him a heads up. And strictly speaking, this was the first time he had brought someone here through the reincarnation tree's clone. In the past, in the 9 regions, it was the people of the human emperor sect who dealt with this matter. Therefore, he didn't know what taboo he had committed or what other reason he had for losing Luyi. But no matter what, he needed an explanation. An ethereal and aged voice suddenly rang out in this small space. "Dragon Monarch, don't worry. This old man just wants that little friend to help me with a little something." Yang Qing frowned as she vaguely recalled something. "The tree world?" he asked, slightly surprised. The reincarnation tree replied, "That's right. There's something wrong with the tree world." Yang Qing sneered, "I told you before not to have the idea of educating without discrimination. Stupid. You should have killed all those races with ulterior motives long ago, or expelled them all." Although this was the first time he had brought someone here through the reincarnation tree's clone, he had also come here when he was roaming the starry sky and had some interactions with the reincarnation tree. Therefore, he knew a lot about the reincarnation tree. The reincarnation tree chuckled, "I gained something. I gained something. The heavenly Tao is fair and just. I have an almost endless lifespan. With great power, there will naturally be certain restrictions. So I have to be fair and just." "What a joke!" Yang Qing snorted. "How can there be complete fairness and just? If that's the case, you would have been refined by others. You could have lived freely for so many years. You wouldn't have taken advantage of this time to ask for help. Since you have asked for help, this bowl of water won't hold up. Even." The reincarnation tree was still not angry. "Dragon Monarch is right. I've been very distressed recently." An old tree that had lived for tens of thousands of years actually said that it was distressed. This was funny no matter how one listened to it. Yang Qing couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense and asked, "Why did you choose him? Don't tell me you know that he came from the 9 provinces." In this starry sky, perhaps all the races that had participated in targeting the 9 provinces were not sure about the survival of the 9 provinces, but the reincarnation tree definitely knew, and even clearly knew the location of the 9 provinces. This was because there were his clones in the 9 provinces. Through his clones, he could clearly sense the existence of the 9 provinces. Similarly, the reincarnation tree also knew clearly that there were cultivators from the 9 provinces who came here through his clones. Of course, that's not the only reason. It's just that there have been more problems in the tree world recently, so I invited a lot of helpers this time. He's just one of them. Yang Qing understood. Since that was the case, there was no problem. Back then, when the cultivators of the human emperor sect brought their juniors here, they often encountered such things because the tree world of the reincarnation tree often had problems. This was related to the reincarnation tree's philosophy of life. Since there was help, there must be good ones. For the 2 little fellows in the divine ocean realm who were not bad, this was also a good opportunity. However, Dragon Monarch, among all the juniors who came here this time, the little fellow you brought has the lowest cultivation level. Has the 9 provinces fallen to this extent? Yang Qing curled her lips and said, "I think you're an old man. When did cultivators kill people based on their cultivation level, especially those from the 9 provinces?" The reincarnation tree chuckled, "Then I'll wait and see." With that, he stepped out and directly appeared in a relatively wide corridor. Behind him was a door with a number on it. Yang Qing silently memorized it. Later on, he still had to pass through here to return to the 9 provinces. He couldn't remember wrongly. If he really did, he didn't know which realm he would run to. He appeared suddenly and almost bumped into a few figures passing by here. One of them hurriedly dodged. Then, he glared angrily at Yang Qing. Yang Qing turned to look at him with a bad temper. "What are you looking at? If you look again, I'll wring your head off." The reincarnation tree had taken Lu Yi away without giving him a heads up. It more or less affected him. The dragon race's narrow-mindedness wasn't groundless. Those who could come here were all from large realms. Those who weren't from large realms didn't have the right to come here. Moreover, regardless of whether they were glorious or not, their ancestors must have been glorious before. Because if they weren't glorious enough, it was impossible to ask for a clone from the reincarnation tree. How good could the temper of creatures from such realms be? The person who was stared at by Yang Qing was about to fly into a rage, but was quickly stopped by his companions. Although they didn't recognize Yang Qing's real body, it was really not good to cause trouble in this place. The leader said, "We're in a hurry. If we offend you, please don't be angry. The other party looked educated and reasonable, so Yang Qing couldn't say much. She just waved her hand coldly and turned to leave. After taking a few steps, she suddenly turned to look at the guy who was glaring at her just now. The corners of her mouth curled up and she sneered, "What did you say? Say it again if you have the guts." It just so happened that she had nowhere to vent her anger. That person's expression was indignant, and he was making a lot of noise. He didn't know which race's language it was. He thought Yang Qing couldn't understand it, but Yang Qing had roamed the starry sky for many years. What race had she not seen? What language could she not understand? The leader's expression changed, and he secretly cursed his companion for being nosy. He could only mediate, "Fellow Taoist, please don't take offense. My companion was just complaining, not cursing." F***CKU? Yang Qing cursed. "Do you really think I can't hear you?" The person who scolded him just now didn't hide anything and shouted, "So what if he scolded you?" The reason why she was so fearless was because there were rules in the reincarnation tree. All guests who came here were not allowed to fight, or they would be disqualified from coming here again. Just this one rule alone was a rule that no one dared to violate. To a certain extent, whether or not one could enter the reincarnation tree was the standard to judge whether or not a realm was truly a large one. Take the current 9 regions for example. Although it could also give birth to the constellation realm. However, without the legacy of the previous 9 regions and the clone of the talent tree, even if it had reached the level of a large realm in terms of size, it would not be recognized by the fellow Taoists in the starry sky. However, in the starry sky, there were still many such realms. Not every realm that could give birth to the constellation realm was qualified to come here. Then you're out of luck. Yang Qing smiled sinisterly and walked forward step by step. The few of them were shocked, and the leader shouted, "Fellow Taoist, what are you trying to do? Beat you guys up." As soon as Yang Qing finished speaking, she pounced on them. The strength of these people was definitely not low. However, how could they withstand the old fist of a dragon? In addition, they had scruples in their hearts and did not dare to be presumptuous here. In a short moment, they were beaten black and blue, and they were in an incomparably sorry state. What shocked them even more was that such a thing happened in the reincarnation tree. As the host, the reincarnation tree did not have the slightest intention of stopping such a nasty incident. Under normal circumstances, once a battle broke out, the reincarnation tree could completely stop it or teleport the 2 sides of the battle into the starry sky. However, from the beginning to the end, they did not wait for the reincarnation tree to uphold justice. The information revealed by this matter was very shocking. Because of the person in front of them, it was very likely that he was an expert that the reincarnation tree did not want to easily offend. Let's start the robbery now. After venting for a while, Yang Qing looked down at the few people who had been beaten to the ground. He did not kill them, and the reincarnation tree tacitly agreed to his venting here. He also had to give the reincarnation tree some face. If he really killed someone, he would have to give it some face. If he really killed them, the reincarnation tree would definitely not ignore it. This was related to the integrity that the reincarnation tree had established for countless tens of thousands of years. Robbery? The few of them were all dumbfounded. Such a powerhouse. He actually wanted to rob them? Was there any justice left? Chapter 12:16. When the thick yellow color dissipated, Lu Yi suddenly found that he had arrived at a place with clear spiritual energy, birdsong, and fragrance of flowers. This is definitely not the 9 prefectures. The spiritual energy of the 9 prefectures is not so dense, so... I've arrived? This is teleportation. The whole process is almost unforgettable, unlike the time when he went to the Wushuang continent through the Liyuan Great Array. What entered his eyes was beautiful purple and red among the greenery, and the tip of his nose was surrounded by all kinds of calm but fragrant flowers. There seems to be another very special fragrance? One just when Lu Yi was about to carefully look around, he suddenly felt that something was wrong, dodged to the side, raised his hand to hold the hilt of the Panshan saber, and looked at the place where he was just now. There was another figure in that position, but it was not Yang Qing who brought him here, but an extremely graceful and enchanting figure. The fragrance that lingered at the tip of his nose, in addition to the unique fragrance of all kinds of flowers here, was the fragrance of this woman's body. When Lu Yishirbao left, the first thing that entered his eyes was a white, dazzling light that made him a little dizzy. The woman was undoubtedly very beautiful, and had an indescribable graceful and charming temperament. Lu Yi had seen all kinds of beauties in the 9 prefectures, but in terms of charm, no one could compare to this woman. Coupled with her enchanting figure, which was the typical type of thin branches with fruits hanging on them, it could give a very strong visual impact, and any male creature who saw it could not help but take a few more glances. Lu Yi was now puzzled about one thing. Where did Yang Qing go? Who is this woman? Compared to Lu Ye's bewilderment, the woman's expression was much calmer, and she only pondered for a moment, and then realized what had happened. This was the benefit of having a reliable elder by her side. Before coming here, her elder had already told her about the current situation, so she could take it as it came. In contrast, Yang Qing was very unreliable, but this matter could not be blamed on him. He had been sealed for 10,000 years, and this was the first time he brought a junior with him as an elder, so he did not think of giving too many warnings, and the dragon race was not a meticulous character. This caused Lu Yi to be at a loss. When Lu Yi noticed the woman, she obviously noticed him as well. She tilted her head and glanced at him. When she saw Lu Ye's attire, she immediately felt a headache coming on. Soldier Mang. In the starry sky, each of the major sects had their own nicknames: Meat Barbarian, Magic Fool, Sword Lunatic, Soldier Brute, Ghost Shadow. All of these are closely related to one's fighting style. It wasn't that they looked down on each other, but there would always be some conflicts between their ideals. Among them, the faction that the magic cultivators were most willing to cooperate with was the body cultivators, because the body cultivators were tough enough and could charge at the front to attract the enemy's firepower, giving them ample time and energy to activate all kinds of powerful spells. The ones who were most unwilling to cooperate were Sword Lunatic and Soldier Mang Zi. Strictly speaking, these 2 types of people were the same type of people. When they killed, they didn't care about anything and had no intention of cooperating. Even if Lu Yi was a ghost cultivator, this woman would not have such an expression. However, when she saw Lu Ye's attire, she knew that the other party was a weapon cultivator. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she hurriedly raised her hand to cover her red lips and pursed her lips into a smile. "I misspoke, fellow Taoist. Please don't blame me." Lu Yi just stared at her. He didn't understand what was going on at the moment, but one thing was certain: this woman who suddenly appeared in front of him didn't seem to have any hostility. This made his actions just now seem to be making a fuss about nothing. The woman curtsied. "Jiao Xian Yu Yao Rao, greetings, fellow Taoist." Was she reporting her origin? Jiao Xian should be the name of the realm this woman came from. As for the specific location in the starry sky, there was no way to know. Others were polite, so Lu Yi naturally couldn't be bad. Moreover, at such a close distance, she should be the one on guard. Yu Yaorao could see Lu Ye's origin as a weapon cultivator, so how could he not see Yu Yaorao's path as a magic cultivator? She raised her hand and cupped her fist. Jiao Tian, Lu Yi. Jiao Xian and Jiao Tian sounded similar, but Jiao Tian was fake while Jiao Xian was real. Yu Yaorao pondered for a moment and found that she had never heard of the name Jiao Tian. However, the starry sky was vast, and it was normal for a spirit sea realm cultivator like her to not know much. Since she could come here, it meant that this was a large realm, so she didn't pay too much attention to it. Junior brother Lu seems to be a little confused about his situation. Ben Yirao was undoubtedly someone who knew how to get familiar with people. Just now, she even called out to junior martial brother. Because just now, when Lu Yi was filming U2B, the fluctuations were very clear. His cultivation level was 1 level lower than hers. This inevitably surprised Yu Yaorao because as far as she knew, those who were qualified to be brought here by their elders were all at the 9th stage of the Divine Sea realm. I am only a short distance away from taking that final step. There seemed to be no precedent for an 8th order Divine Sea realm cultivator to come here. After all, which large realm didn't have ninth-order Divine Sea Realm cultivators? It didn't make sense for a ninth-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator to come here instead. I was just about to ask this senior sister. I came here with my family's elder, but after arriving here, my family's elder was nowhere to be seen. Instead, I saw senior sister. What's going on? Where is this place? Since others were willing to get close to him, Lu Yi naturally let nature take its course. Your elder didn't say anything to you? Lu Yi replied, he only said that he would bring me to the reincarnation tree, but when I look around, there doesn't seem to be any reincarnation tree here. It was a place filled with birds, fragrant flowers, and lush greenery. It had a kind of aloofness, but other than that, there was nothing else worth paying special attention to. Yu Yaorao laughed. Your elder is really unreliable. She straightened her face and said, this is indeed the reincarnation tree. Strictly speaking, it is a tree realm. The so-called tree realm is the cycle of reincarnation. It can be said that there are an infinite number of them. As for which tree realm this is, I am not sure. As for why we are here. As for why? She paused for a moment as if she was sorting out her words, before continuing, the reincarnation tree is a treasure of the starry sky. It has existed for tens of thousands of years. It accepts all rivers and streams, and it teaches without discrimination. Therefore, in this vast starry sky, there are many races who have lost their territories or have to wander around for various reasons. They come to the reincarnation tree to seek shelter. The reincarnation tree has never refused them. After all, it has many tree realms, enough to accommodate those who have lost their homes and wandered around. Of course, there are also many who come here because of its reputation. Therefore, the reincarnation tree can be seen as a miniature version of the starry sky. Almost all the races in the starry sky can be found in the reincarnation tree, including us humans. We also occupy many tree realms here. Races can't coexist peacefully most of the time, which leads to some conflicts. However, everyone is making a living here, so they can control themselves, unless one situation occurs. What situation? Lu Yi asked in a timely manner. Not all the races who come to the reincarnation tree to seek shelter only come with the idea of seeking shelter. There are also some who have ulterior motives. They came here with the intention of plundering those rare races, because some of the rare races in the starry sky often have some very special abilities. Most of the disputes and conflicts between the reincarnation tree realms are caused by this. Lu Yi was surprised. If so, the reincarnation tree will drive them away. Won't it be over if they are driven out? It should be able to distract the reincarnation tree, right? Yu Yaorao pursed her lips and smiled. She was really charming and graceful. I don't know how a woman in her 20s can have such charm. Of course, the reincarnation tree has such an ability, but it is the sect that established the world. Its purpose is to tolerate all things. When those races come, it will accept them, but will not expel them. It will also not take the initiative to do something for them. What will it do? Lu Yi said thoughtfully, not taking the initiative, so it can be passive? Yu Yaorao looked at him in surprise. Junior brother's mind is sharp. That is indeed the case. Take this realm for example. At this moment, it must have encountered some invasions, so no matter which race lives in this realm, they can send a request to the reincarnation tree, asking it to send people to help them. This is the reason why we are here. It is the reincarnation tree that sent us here, and what we want to do is to solve the problem of the reincarnation tree. Junior brother can treat this as a test. If you can pass, then you will have the qualifications to participate in the next battle of the Divine Sea. If you can't pass, then you will have the qualifications to participate in the next battle of the Divine Sea. If you don't pass, you may have to go back to where you came from. Lu Yi wanted to ask about the next battle of the Divine Sea, but after thinking about it, he decided to ask Yang Qing later. Asking here would make him seem ignorant. Until now, he still didn't know why Yang Qing brought him here. Yang Qing only said that they were here to rob something. As for what to rob, he didn't know at all. However, from the information he had obtained, it seemed that he and Yu Yaorao were natural allies. because the experience in this realm would determine the qualifications of the two of them. In this way, there was no need to guard against her. Lu Yi turned his head and looked around. Then, in senior sister's opinion, what race lives in this realm? Yu Yaorao said, in any case, it will not be the human race. If it was the human race, there would be traces of human existence. Although they didn't know how big this realm was, within the range of their divine sense, they didn't sense any living creatures. As for what race it is, they will naturally come to us. As soon as Yu Yaorao's voice fell, the surrounding trees suddenly bloomed with a faint light. Then, spots of light drifted out from the trees and gathered in front of the two of them. In the shroud of light, an illusory figure appeared and bowed slightly. I have made the two distinguished guests wait for a long time. First, thank you for coming. Chapter 12:17. Lu Yi looked over and saw that the illusory figure was extremely tall, at least several meters tall. It had hands and feet, but whether it was the hands or feet, they seemed to be made of tree branches. There was also a circle of green saplings on its head, full of vitality. Its body was straight and there were clear facial features on its head. What kind of race was this? Lu Yi was confused. At first glance, it looked like the wood had turned into a spirit. Wood spirit race? Yu Yaorao recognized the other party's identity at a glance. Lu Yi didn't know any wood spirit race, but he had seen fire spirit race before. Back then, there was a group of fire spirit race sealed under a volcano between Blue Flame Mountain Pass and Lone Mountain City Pass. He accidentally broke the seal. And caused a lot of trouble at that time. As if realizing Lu Ye's ignorance, Yu Yaorao transmitted her voice to him. In the starry sky, there are 5 spirit races, corresponding to metal, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. They are all extremely rare races. Since Wood Spirit has appeared in front of us, this should be Wood Spirit Tree World. Wood Spirit race has a gentle temperament and basically lives a peaceful life. However, each of them is a natural medical cultivator and is proficient in all kinds of healing methods. Moreover, they themselves have boundless strength. It is said that Wood Spirit Crystal Core has the effect of reviving the dead, so they are easily targeted by some powerful races. Lu Yi nodded silently. Such a race had strange abilities and treasures in their bodies, but it didn't seem strong enough. It was normal for them to be targeted. It was a matter of course. But what? Lu Yi asked. Yu Yaorao shook her head. It's nothing. It wasn't something difficult to talk about, but although she recognized the Wood Spirit Tree World that had suddenly appeared in front of her. It seemed to be a Wood Spirit, but it seemed to be somewhat different from the legendary Wood Spirit. She was only a divine sea realm cultivator, so her knowledge of the major races in the starry sky was limited to the records of the travel books of the elders in her sect. She had never personally come in contact with them. Yes. The Wood Spirit's voice was extremely loud, like a muffled thunder. This old man is Mu Shanshan, the patriarch of Wood Spirit race. Thank you 2 little friends for coming. Recently, our Wood Spirit race's tree world has encountered some trouble, so I am afraid we will have to trouble you 2 little friends to help us solve it. Yu Yaorao bowed respectfully. This is the original intention of us workers coming here. Patriarch, please tell us what you need us to do. Since the reincarnation tree had sent her and Lu Yi into this tree world, the qualification test had already begun. As for how to pass this test in the end, it all depended on what the 2 of them would do next and the reincarnation tree's judgment. Patriarch Mu Shanshan continued. The Wood Spirit Tree World has always been suffering from the invasion of the insect race. Those vile insects have invaded our Wood Spirit Tree World and created a huge insect nest in our Wood Spirit Tree World. In recent years, the living space of the Wood Spirit Tree World has been greatly suppressed, and the safety of the children has been greatly threatened. Therefore, this old man would like to ask the 2 of you to help us eradicate that insect nest and kill those vile insects. Lu Yi frowned as he listened. Why were there insectoids everywhere? From the looks of it, the insectoid race was a huge disaster in the starry sky. However, when he recalled Yu Yaorao's introduction about the reincarnation tree's all-encompassing nature, he felt relieved. The reincarnation tree was equivalent to a miniature version of the starry sky, where many races gathered, many of which were extremely rare, but they all had special abilities. As the saying goes, an innocent man gets into trouble because of his wealth. Under such circumstances, it was easy to be targeted. The insectoid race had always been the largest raiding group in the starry sky, so it wasn't strange for them to appear here. "We need some detailed information," Yu Yaorao said. She and Lu Yi were only the two of them. With the cooperation of the Wood Spirit clan, it was hard to say how much help the other party could provide, so information was necessary. Yu Yaorao was confident in her own strength, but she didn't have much confidence in Lu Ye's strength. He was only an 8th order divine sea cultivator, so no matter how strong he was, he couldn't be that strong. It was just a fact. "This is not a problem. This old man will give you two a detailed explanation later. My Wood Spirit clan will definitely thank you for your trouble." Yu Yaorao smiled faintly without commenting, but Lu Yi was interested. "What kind of reward?" Patriarch Mu Shan scratched his ears and cheeks. He had just said it casually. Most of the humans he had come into contact with before were noble and pure people. No matter what they thought, at least they wouldn't ask too much. After the matter was over, he would just give them some random things to send them off. Who knew that someone would really ask him such a question in person? This was the first time since the beginning of time. He rolled his eyes and said, "Crystal core. The most precious crystal core of my Wood Spirit clan. With it, no matter how serious your injuries are in the future, even if you only have one breath left, you can come back from the dead. With it, you too will have an extra life. The crystal core of the Wood Spirit clan is worthy of you two little friends." Lu Yi nodded lightly. If it was such a reward, it would indeed be very satisfying. Cultivators out there, who didn't have a dangerous time. If their lives were in danger, the crystal core of the Wood Spirit clan could really save their lives. Yu Yaorao was stunned for a moment, and then her bright eyes narrowed slightly. Patriarch Mu Shan still wanted to say something, but Yu Yaorao suddenly raised her hand and waved it. She didn't know what treasure she used, but the space in front of her instantly became more and more visible. There were many fine lines visible to the naked eye. Those fine lines crisscrossed and surrounded Patriarch Mu Shan tightly. Lu Yi raised his hand and held the hilt of the mountain pan saber. His aura condensed and didn't release. Patriarch Mu Shan's body stiffened. He stood in place and shivered. He looked at the countless flickering thin lines around him in horror and fear. "Well, what is this?" Lu Yi tilted his head and looked at Yu Yaorao. Yu Yaorao snorted lightly. "He is not a Wood Spirit. I was almost fooled by him." "What do you mean?" Lu Yi asked. "The Wood Spirit clan, no matter what, will never give their crystal core to others. Because the crystal core is the source of life of the Wood Spirit clan. Even if a Wood Spirit dies, as long as the crystal core exists, it can give birth to a new Wood Spirit. Therefore, the crystal core is a taboo for the Wood Spirit clan. The Wood Spirit clan values it even more. How can a real Wood Spirit clan give away their crystal core? That is equivalent to giving away their own clansmen. Also, there's one more thing. Although I told you that the Wood Spirit clan's crystal core has the effect of bringing the dead back to life, it was actually just an exaggeration. Perhaps it really does have some healing effects, but it definitely can't bring the dead back to life. He said he's the chief of the Wood Spirit clan, so how could he not know the difference? So he is a fake? Lu Yi clicked his tongue in wonder. He raised his eyes and looked at Mu Shan. His eyes were filled with insight spirit patterns, but there was no sign of it. Problem. Fortunately, Junior Brother asked one more question. Otherwise, I would have been fooled by him. When Lu Yi asked that question, Yu Yaorao felt that this cultivator from the 9th heaven was a little greedy. He hadn't helped anyone yet, but he was already thinking about it. The benefits were really realistic. But now, it seemed that she still had to thank him. "Speak, why did you lie to us?" Yu Yaorao stared at Mu Shan. She urged her spiritual power, and the sharp lines around his body shrank inwards. After a while, Mu Shan was still quibbling. He said with a sad face, I didn't lie to you. I am really the patriarch of the Wood Spirit clan. You have to believe me." While he was complaining about his grievances, he observed the two humans in front of him, but he saw that the two humans in front of him were completely indifferent. Especially that weapon cultivator. Not only was he indifferent, but he was also eager to try. His fingers were still rubbing the hilt of his saber, as if he could draw his saber and slash at any time. I swear to the reincarnation tree, I didn't lie to you." The weapon cultivator really pulled out his saber and walked towards him step by step. Mu Shan panicked. His eyes turned even more frequently than before, as if he was thinking about how to win the trust of the two humans in front of him. But in such a short time, the other party had a preconceived idea. How could they be so easily convinced? "Junior brother, wait." At the critical moment, Yu Yaorao shouted. Lu Yi stopped. The corners of Yu Yaorao's mouth curled up into a smile. "You dared to act so mysteriously in front of the reincarnation tree and made so many mistakes. Moreover, you even had such a miraculous transformation ability. The two of us couldn't see through your disguise at all. Moreover, your mouth was full of nonsense and you didn't dare to show your true appearance. I roughly know what race you are." Mu Shan was still stubborn. "I am the patriarch of the Wood Spirit clan." But his tone was much weaker. "A group of demons. Quickly show your true form." Yu Yaorao shouted. The thin lines surrounding Mu Shan suddenly shrank rapidly. Those thin lines looked unremarkable, but in fact, each one was incomparably sharp. She had refined them with treasures from an extremely evil place in the 9 profound world. Its quality was so high that it had reached the limit of a spirit treasure. Even if she advanced to the constellation realm in the future, such a spirit treasure would be enough to meet her needs for battle. The thin lines crisscrossed, and Mu Shan cried out in pain. "I am dead." As he shouted, green blood gushed out from his whole body. His whole body was divided into pieces and scattered on the ground. Li was shocked by Yu Yaorao. This was the reincarnation tree's tree world. Moreover, the two of them had come to help. But before they could help, they killed the main character? What was going on? Although he had pulled out his saber, it was at most for show. He wouldn't really use his saber to chop people. But Yu Yaorao didn't panic in the slightest after killing the wrong person. Instead, she was calm and composed. "Junior brother Lu probably doesn't know that there is a very rare race in this world. It is much rarer than the 5-element spirit clan. It is called the demon race. They are born with a very strange transformation ability. They can transform into any appearance they want. Moreover, it is as if they are made by nature. Even if the cultivation is 1 or 2 realms higher than them, they may not be able to see through it." New. Chapter 12:18. So the wood spirit is not a wood spirit, it is just an illusion. Lu Yi understood. If this was the innate ability of the wood spirit, then there was a reasonable explanation why even his clear vision spirit rune couldn't see through the flaw. Mouth the starry sky was vast and there were many races. Among them, except for the human race, which didn't have anything special, almost every other race had 1 or 2 skills. Mouth, but ironically, in this starry sky, it was the human race that didn't have anything special. They occupied the most domains and were the most famous race among all the races. They were the real overlord. There was once an almighty expert who asserted that if the human race in the starry sky didn't have internal strife, then there would be no space for other races to survive. At that time, all the races would become the vassals of the human race. But the internal strife of the human race was something that couldn't be stopped or changed. The fairy race has many strange characteristics, not only the ability to transform, but if there is any race in the reincarnation tree's tree world that can transform to such a lifelike degree, then it is the fairy race. While speaking, Yu Yaorao had already put away her thread-like spirit treasure. Standing in front of the corpse of Patriarch Mu Shan, a bright flame burned in her hand. Staring at the corpse on the ground, she said, "Still not showing yourself? Do I have to set you on fire?" When her thread-like spirit treasure cut Mu Shan's body, it looked like she had photoshopped Mu Shan's body, but in fact, she didn't feel any force at all during the whole process. In other words, when the thread-like spirit treasure cut through Mu Shanshan's body had already been torn apart, including the dark green blood that spurted out. It was just the appearance of a method. A scene that surprised Lu Yi appeared. After Yu Yaorao uttered her threat, the pieces of broken corpses on the ground actually came to life. They twisted and changed, and turned into a solid existence that was only about 1 foot tall. At first glance, they looked like the human race that had been shrunk many times, but different from the human race, each of them had a pair of wings on their back. The wings were not flesh wings, but translucent like the wings of a dragonfly. They were wearing colorful clothes, and each of them had different colors lingering around them. For a moment, it was as if 100 flowers were blooming. The field of vision became colorful. In terms of appearance, the men were extremely handsome, and the women were also extremely beautiful. All of them were young and full of vitality. Only the spirit transformed from the wooden head had a head full of white hair. He looked like an old man, but he was dressed in flashy clothes. Unlike the colorful clothes of the other spirits, this old man was shimmering with golden light. Even among all the other spirits, he was the most dazzling one. Thinking back to Wu Shanshan's initial introduction, Lu Yi suddenly understood that this guy wasn't Wu Shanshan, he was clearly Gold Shanshan. It was just that when he introduced himself, he almost made a blunder. This was a demon. Lu Yi looked around with great interest. In the 9 regions, one would never be able to see such wonderful things. Aside from the human race, there were only ugly and abominable insects. Later on, they also came into contact with the blood race and the corpse race. However, no matter which race it was, none of them could be compared to the fairy race. The monsters revealed their true forms, and there were more than 100 of them. They flapped their wings, and under the dumbstruck gaze of Lu Yi and Yu Yaorao, they stacked up one after another. It could be seen that they were very skilled in doing this, and they should have done it more than once. In the blink of an eye, they stacked up into a pyramid. The only one with a head full of white hair, Gold Shanshan, stood at the top of the pyramid, assuming a domineering posture of a golden rooster standing on one leg and fiercely looking at the 2 humans. Then the monsters began to speak. Since you saw through it, then we won't hide it. Yes. That's right, we are in the sky, gathering wisdom and beauty. Yes. Talent and morality. Yes. The greatest, the wisest, and the most powerful. Bao, fairy race. Yes. The monsters spoke in a very hierarchical manner. The first to speak was from the lower layer, and then from one layer after another, and finally from the top, Gold Shanshan, to finish. The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. Yu Yaorao also raised her hand to cover her face. Even if she had read some records about the monsters from the travel notes of her elders, and knew what kind of character the monsters had, at this moment, she still felt somewhat embarrassed. She quietly transmitted her voice to Lu Yi. No matter how old the fairy race is, they are born with a childlike nature. They are actually just like the children of the human race. Yes. Lu Yi deeply agreed. I see. Ah. Ayaya. Gold Shanshan suddenly exclaimed. There was no other reason. The pyramid, it collapsed. The group of monsters swayed left and right. They clearly had wings, but every one of them fell and became dizzy. Immediately after, the monsters began to argue. This monster accused another monster of not standing properly, and that monster accused another monster of falling down, and this was not an ordinary argument, but a quarrel between every monster. For a moment, the scene was very lively. Lu Yi felt like there were hundreds of ducks quacking in his ears. Before they could reach a conclusion about the collapse of the pyramid, the topic inexplicably changed again. The monsters began to argue about why they were exposed. Some said that Gold Shanshan was too stupid, some said that he should not have transformed into a wood spirit, and all kinds of quarreling topics, and so on. I forgot to tell Junior Brother, the monsters talk too much. Yu Yaorao transmitted her voice to Lu Yi again, but this does not mean that they are not united, this is just their characteristic. Yes. Lu Yi also saw this point, because although the monsters were quarreling, no one had the intention to fight, especially Gold Shanshan. He was obviously the patriarch of the fairy race, but he was being scolded by the other monsters. His face and neck were red, and he did not have the power and dignity that a patriarch should have. The monsters were still quarreling, and the two humans just stood on the side and watched quietly. At a certain moment, the noise suddenly subsided, and then the group of monsters looked at Yu Yaorao and Lu Yi anxiously. Gold Shanshan pushed the crowd aside, flapped his little wings, and pretended to cough lightly and said, "First of all, I would like to apologize to the two distinguished guests on behalf of the fairy race, because we deceived you. For upright and kind people like us, this is an unforgivable mistake, but we also ask for the two distinguished guests' understanding. After all, our fairy race is really not suitable to appear in front of others." "Yes." Yu Yaorao smiled slightly. "I understand. The fairy race has a huge attraction to any race, and this is also the fairy race's way of self-protection." Gold Shanshan's forehead showed a mature posture. "It would be best if the two of you can understand. Of course, it doesn't matter if you don't understand. Let's just let this small unhappiness vanish, and let's talk about business." Yu Yaorao said, "I still say the same thing. It's not a problem if you want our help. We came here for this purpose, but we need detailed information." Gold Shanshan said, "I will inform the two of you." Then, he narrated the current situation of the fairy tree world. In fact, the situation was not too complicated. It was just that the insect race had invaded and built a large insect nest in their fairy tree world, wanting to invade their fairy tree world and kidnap their fairy race members. What Yu Yaorao and Lu Yi needed to do was to uproot the insect nest, kill all the insect race, and return the fairy tree world to Threshold Universe. Lu Yi found a problem. "Are there only so many of your people? Or were they killed by the insect race?" Gold Shanshan said proudly, "There are only so many of our people, so we are the rarest race in the starry sky." As if this was something worth showing off. Lu Yi raised her eyebrows. "In other words, we are the only ones dealing with the insect race?" Gold Shanshan said solemnly, "This little friend is wrong. It's not us, it's you." Lu Yi was stunned. "Then what about you? We will cheer for you." Gold Shanshan replied seriously, and the other fairy race members were stunned. Lu Yi suddenly felt that there was a reason why this race had so few members. Their own home was invaded, but they did not have the intention to resist, and instead counted on outsiders. This kind of philosophy was really hard to agree with. To be honest, if this was not the test of the reincarnation tree, Lu Yi would not help. People need to be strong to be saved, and if they can't even be strong, then they should be wiped out. There were more than one or two races that were wiped out. Yu Yaorao said, "We can help, but you can't just cheer. We need your blessings." Lu Yi didn't know what Zhu Yan was, but Yu Yaorao had some understanding of the Fey race. Since she brought it up at this time, then she must have her reasons. Presumably, this so-called Zhu Yan would be able to provide some assistance. Gold Shanshan rubbed his hands, looking a little embarrassed. Yu Yaorao looked determined. "If you can't even provide blessings, then please forgive us for not being able to help. We need to discuss." Gold Shanshan said quickly. "Then hurry up, time waits for no one." A group of fairy race members immediately gathered together, with their heads facing inwards and buttocks facing outwards, forming a large circle, and began to discuss. Lu Yi could not understand because they were speaking the fairy race's language, so he turned to look at Yu Yaorao. Yu Yaorao smiled bitterly. "I don't understand the fairy race's language either." "What is blessings?" Lu Yi asked. Yu Yaorao explained, "The fairy race itself does not have strong fighting power, and they don't like to fight with the insect race. They were not used to fighting with people at noon, so in the face of the insect race's invasion, they actually did not have much ability to resist. Junior Marshall brother Lu should have wronged them on this point. It was not that they were not strong enough, but it was mainly because of their characteristics. Although they were not used to fighting with people, each of them had an innate auxiliary ability, which was their blessings. Any cultivator, if they could bring a fairy race member with them, their strength would increase by at least 20%. They could also give cultivators some special blessings in different fields. There is such a strange thing? Lu Ye's eyes lit up, and he looked at the fairy race members gathered in a circle in front of him, as if he had seen a group of treasures. Please enter them. Com to view the latest update. Read for free. Chapter 12:19. After the discussion of the fairies ended, Gold Sparkle stood up with a serious expression. We have decided to agree to your request. We will send 2 of our strongest fairies to help you. These words sounded. Something seemed wrong. It was clearly Lu Yi and Yu Yaorao who had come to help them fight against the enemy's invasion and restore the peace of the tree realm, but Gold Sparkle's words clearly had the intention of turning the host into a guest. However, there was no need to care about this with the fairies. They were born this way. Yu Yaorao nodded. That's for the best. I wonder which 2 fairies your noble family will send? Gold Sparkle chuckled. This. We still have to discuss it. Turning around, the fairies began to discuss again. Lu Yi couldn't tell who was stronger or weaker among the fairies. In his perception, there wasn't much difference between the auras of these fairies. It was as if even their cultivation realms were about the same. But thinking about it, there was a standard among them that could distinguish between the strong and the weak. Moreover, this matter concerned the future of the fairy tree realm, so they would definitely not be careless. Since they had said that they would send the 2 strongest demons. Fairy, then naturally. But soon, Lu Yi knew that he was thinking too much. Because the fairies were very against this matter, the discussion turned into an argument. Seeing that the situation was about to get out of hand, Gold Sparkle jumped into the air, put his hands on his waist, and shouted, "In that case, let's do it according to the old rules. There is an old saying in the human race, life and death are fated, wealth and honor are in the heavens. It also applies to us fairies, so no one has any complaints later." The group of fairies all had solemn expressions as they prepared for battle. Just when Lu Yi thought that they were going to pass some sacred and fair test. When they were about to decide the title of the strongest in a fair way, Gold Sparkle waved his hand and a large circle suddenly appeared in his hand. He held the cylinder with both hands and shook it up and down a few times. Then he slapped it in front of him and shouted, "Who's first?" The fairies pushed and shoved each other, showing great humility. Everyone has a share. No one can run away. Gold Sparkle took out the demeanor of a patriarch and pointed at one of the yellow-clothed fairies. "Fairy, you first." Usually, any demon would dare to disobey the clan leader, Gold Sparkle, but when he gave orders, no one dared to disobey. The yellow-clothed demon immediately flew forward dejectedly. She reached out with her small hand and grabbed the cylinder. When she pulled her hand back, there was a long object in her hand. She didn't know what material it was made of, but it was pitch black. The yellow-clothed demoness immediately cheered and laughed loudly. With the first one, the rest was simple. The sprites stepped forward one by one, each of them grabbing a small black rod from the cylinder. Some were overjoyed, while others were uneasy. Lu Yi found that those who were cheering were obviously the ones who had caught the longer black stick. Those who were uneasy were all. It was relatively short. He finally understood that this was not a sacred and fair ceremony at all. This was simply a lucky draw. When all the fairies had drawn their little black rods, Glittery Gold shook the cylinder again. Almost all the little black rods in the fairies' hands flew back, leaving only 2 fairies holding them. The results are out. Twinkle Gold looked at the 2 sorrowful demons and came to a conclusion. It's you guys. Among the 2 fairies, one was wearing yellow, but it was not the yellow-clothed demon who had drawn the first lot, but the other one. The second one was wearing green. The yellow-clothed one was a male demon, and the green-clothed one was a female demon. It was unknown whether it was a coincidence or not. Glittery Gold brought the 2 fairies in front of Lu Yi and Yu Yaorao, and said with a straight face, "2 distinguished guests, these are the 2 most powerful clansmen of our fairy clan. They will definitely be able to provide you with the best blessings for the rest of your journey." Lu Yi didn't know what to say at all. If he hadn't seen their selection with his own eyes, he would have really believed this guy's nonsense. Yu Yaorao, on the other hand, looked as if she was used to it. She smiled and said, Thank you, Patriarch. Please rest assured we will protect them well. Glittery Gold nodded, then I will leave the rest to you. He reached out and pushed the 2 chosen fairies forward, turned around, and left. A large group of fairies followed him noisily, and soon disappeared without a trace. From afar, a golden, sparkling voice sounded, "Children, life must be enjoyable. Let's continue the banquet." It caused a burst of cheers. The 2 humans and the 2 fairies looked at each other. The 2 fairies were obviously very uneasy about what had happened, and there was a lot of fear in their eyes. Yu Yaorao was well aware of it and comforted them gently. "You two can rest assured, we will never let anything happen to you." The 2 fairies nodded, and the fear on their faces dissipated a lot. Lu Yi said, "But you also have to be obedient. If you don't, you will die in vain." He was really convinced by the unreliability of this group of fairies. Starting from the fairies, there were all kinds of situations that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. This kind of unreliability was not a problem on normal days, but if it was revealed in a battle with the enemy, it may cause some unnecessary trouble. It had always been the instinct of the human clan to be good at being bad. Since Yu Yaorao was playing the good cop, he could only play the bad cop. To be honest, if he wasn't curious about the fairies Zhu Yan, he didn't want to bring these 2 fellows along. But looking at Yu Yaorao's expression, she seemed to be very satisfied with this. The 2 fairies, who had just calmed down, became frightened again. To them, it was the most vicious word in the world. "So, in the next operation, you have to assist us well. We will do our best to protect you." Yu Yaorao continued. "But if there is someone who is disobedient and runs away from the battle, I will kill him first." Lu Yi added. Yu Yaorao smiled knowingly and didn't say anything more. Instead, she asked, "Then, which direction do your Zhu Yan lean towards?" The yellow-clothed fairy, who was a male, spoke first, and he was still calm. "My Zhu Yan leans towards the enhancement of the body." The green-clothed female fairy said weakly, "My Zhu Yan leans towards the enhancement of weapons." Yu Yaorao understood and raised her finger to point at the yellow-clothed fairy. "Then you follow me, and the other one will follow junior martial brother Lu Yi." She was a magic cultivator, and she wouldn't use a sword to kill people. It was useless to have the enhancement of the green-clothed fairy, so this arrangement was reasonable. The yellow-clothed fairy nodded his head like a chicken pecking rice, and the green-clothed fairy looked at her with tears in her eyes. "Can I?" "No." Lu Yi raised his hand and grabbed her and put her down. She sat on his shoulder. The green-clothed fairy grabbed a strand of hair by his ear and shivered. She was trembling. Yu Yaorao smiled and said, "Then let's start with introducing ourselves first. I know the Zhu Yan of you fairies. You need to use the name of the person you wish to bless. My name is Yu Yaorao from the 9 Mysteries world. This is junior martial brother Lu Yi from the 9 Heavens world." The yellow-clothed fairy said, "My name is Huang Tong Tong." The green-clothed fairy still whispered, "My name is Lu Ying." What kind of bullshit name is this? Lu Yi was stunned, but seeing Yu Yaorao's smiling expression, she seemed to have expected it. "Then we can be considered to know each other now." It has to be said that Yu Yaorao was beautiful and good at mediating the relationship between each other. It would be very relaxing and pleasant to get along with such a person if they were not enemies. After a few words, the 2 fairies were not as nervous as before. "Before taking action, can you let us feel the power of your fairies Zhu Yan? This way, it will be more convenient for us to cooperate later." Yu Yaorao said. This was also a reasonable suggestion. Even if she did not say it, Lu Yi would have said it. Since they want to cooperate with each other, they naturally have to get familiar with each other first. They can't just pick up the sword and go into battle. No problem. Huang Tong Tong nodded and then flew and landed on Yu Yaorao's shoulder. He muttered something in his mouth, and then a layer of bright yellow light flowed out. Then, it entered Yu Yaorao's body. Yu Yaorao raised her eyebrows and silently felt it. She sighed with emotion. The fairy's Zhu Yan is indeed worthy of its reputation. The enhancement of the physical body was not only to strengthen the physique. This was not very useful for magic cultivators, but under this kind of Zhu Yen, she could clearly feel that the spiritual power in her body was flowing faster, and her thoughts seemed to be a lot purer. Just this alone could indeed increase her strength by at least 10 to 20%. If it was an individual cultivator who received this kind of Zhu Yen, the increase would be even greater. What about you? Lu Yi saw that Yu Yaorao seemed to have gained something, so he turned his head and looked at Lu Yingying on his shoulder. Lu Yingying was shocked and almost fell from his shoulder. She felt that this human was much more ferocious than the other one. When he opened his mouth, it seemed like he wanted to eat people. She did not dare to be anxious and hurriedly activated the Zhu Yen technique. Lu Yi waited for a moment, but did not feel anything. But thinking of what Lu Yingying said before, it seemed that her Zhu Yen technique was biased towards the enhancement of weapons. He pulled out his sword. Lu Yingying instantly cried, "Don't kill me, don't kill me, I've already tried my best." "Shut up!" Lu Yi shouted in a low voice. Lu Yingying quickly stopped crying and looked at him pitifully. Lu Yi frowned, "It's useless?" The Pan Shan sword did not seem to have any change. Yu Yaorao was puzzled. It shouldn't be. Nothing. There was indeed no change. Lu Yi looked at Lu Yingying again. Did the Zhu Yen technique make a mistake? Nothing. There is absolutely no mistake. Lu Yingying waved her two small hands and the wings behind her back also fluttered together. Yu Yaorao also said, "A demon's Zhu Yen technique will not be wrong. If it is useless, then there is only one possibility." She looked at Lu Yi with deep meaning. "Junior brother, did you give a fake name?" "What do you mean?" Lu Yi was puzzled. Yu Yaorao explained, "A demon's Zhu Yen technique is a magical power. There was once a powerful cultivator who studied it, but it is a power that no other race can use except for the demon. It is related to some mysteries in the unseen world. Please enter .com to view it in your browser. Free reading. Chapter 12:20. The so-called mystery was something that couldn't be explained, observed, or even felt, but it really existed. The blessing words of the fairy race were related to this mysterious power. This was also the biggest reason why no other race could use the blessing words except for the fairy race. The name of a creature is actually a bit mysterious. This is also why many powerful beings in the starry sky don't easily reveal their names. The blessing words of the fairy race require the name of the person being blessed. If the name is fake, then the blessing words won't work. Lu Yi looked calm. "This is my name." With Yang Qing's previous warning, he wouldn't casually announce the existence of the 9 regions, but there was no need to hide his name. He was a divine sea realm cultivator. Why would he lie about his name? Yu Yaorao saw that he didn't seem to be faking it, so she couldn't help but be curious. Then why? "I also want to ask why," Lu Yi thought. But soon Yu Yaorao remembered something. "Junior brother, in your domain, is there any other name that is more recognized by the creatures in your domain? If there is, then it should be because of this." The corner of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. There really was such a name. Lu Ye. Yu Yaorao looked at Lu Yingying. Lu Yingying understood tacitly and used the blessing words again. This time, Lu Yi immediately felt something different. This was because there was a kind of energy that he almost didn't notice being added to his Pan Mountain Saber. From the outside, the Pan Mountain Saber didn't seem to have changed at all. However, he could clearly feel that the Pan Mountain Saber had become sharper. It was as if Lu Yingying had blessed him with the sharpness spiritual tattoo, and the degree of sharpness was much more powerful than a simple sharpness spiritual tattoo. With the saber in hand, he suddenly had an illusion that no matter what was in front of him, he could easily cut it in half. Spiritual tattoo? It wasn't a spiritual tattoo, but it felt similar. The sharpness spiritual tattoo was the first spiritual tattoo he obtained from the talent tree. It had provided him with a lot of help in his cultivation and battles. Almost every battle, he would bless the Pan Shan saber with the sharpness spiritual tattoo, sometimes even a double-peak sharpness spiritual tattoo. Because the Pan Mountain saber's characteristics were never sharp enough, it was mainly heavy and heavy. This forced him to add sharpness spirit runes to make the saber sharper. When one's cultivation wasn't high, The sharpness spirit rune was still very powerful. It could basically slash through everything. However, as his cultivation level increased, the enemies he encountered became more and more powerful. Just the sharpness spirit tattoo alone was not enough. Even the double peak sharpness spirit tattoo was not enough. This was because the higher the cultivation level of the enemy, the stronger their physique. This was especially so when he fought against the holy seeds of the blood race in the blood refinement realm. If it were not for Lu Ye's ability to suppress the enemy to a large extent with the holy seeds of the blood race, it would have been very difficult for him to use the mountain pan blade alone to cause effective damage. Recently, Lu Ye had been thinking about this problem. Should he reforge the Pan Shan saber to make it sharper? But he couldn't make up his mind. However, if his sharpness spirit tattoo could reach the level of Zhu Yan of the fairy clan, then there would be no need to modify it at all. While many thoughts flashed through his mind, Yu Yaorao pursed her lips and giggled. It seems like junior brother Lu's other name is the one that is truly recognized. For Zhu Yan of the fairy clan, only a name that was truly recognized by more creatures could play a role. Right now, 9 out of 10 cultivators in the 9 prefectures would address him as Lu Ye. Only the people closest to him would address him as Lu Yi. Even the information in the battlefield imprint that was verified by Tianji had long changed his name to Lu. Lu Yi was a little puzzled. Ye was obviously just a playful nickname. It was fine if it was spread in the 9 regions, but now that he had come to the starry sky, there was no way to get rid of it. Let's go. Lu Yi didn't want to be entangled in this issue. He sheathed the saber and walked out. The location where the two were now was inside the fairy tree realm, which was also the center of the fairy tree realm. This location only had a radius of a few hundred miles, which was hidden by the fairy clan. Therefore, even if they only had hundreds of people, they could still stand under the encirclement and suppression of the insect race. Because although the insect race with pure intelligence occupied the vast majority of the fairy tree realm, they still couldn't find a place to stay. This point had already been explained in the introduction of Golden Glitter just now. This was also the reason why they didn't show any impatience. They had long been accustomed to such a situation. Even without Lu Yi and Yu Yaorao, their safety would not be threatened. Moreover, even if Lu Yi and Yu Yaorao helped them solve the problem this time, in a few days, there would be a new invasion of the insect race. In the next 100 years, when the next batch of Divine Sea Realm cultivators came, there would be people sent here to help them. Unless the reincarnation tree changed its principles, the fairy tree realm would never be peaceful, because the insect race could also rely on it and occupy a place in other fairy tree realms. Only a moment later, the two left the hiding place of the fairy clan. As if they had broken through an invisible barrier, the scene that was imprinted in their eyes was no longer a vibrant world, but a barren one. Insects of different sizes crawled on the ground and flew in the sky, searching for traces of the fairy clan, but found nothing. Seeing these ferocious insect race, Lu Yi clearly felt Lu Yingying's nervousness on his shoulder because his hair was being pulled. This race had all kinds of problems, cowardly, unreliable, but it was undeniable that they were a group of naive and kind little things. This kind of character was not suitable for survival in the starry sky. Perhaps it was because of this that they lost their home and had no choice but to come to the fairy tree realm to find a place to stay. Junior brother Lu, do you have any good suggestions? Looking at the many insect race that had sensed the two's aura and were aggressively rushing towards them, Yu Yaorao asked. Lu Yi slowly drew his blade and spat out a word, kill. Dealing with the insect race was simple and direct. There was no need to beat around the bush. His figure swept forward like an arrow leaving the bowstring. The sudden increase in speed made Lu Yingying couldn't help but cry out in alarm. She grabbed a strand of his hair with one hand and his collar with the other, so she didn't get thrown down. The creatures in the fairy tree realm wouldn't surpass the divine sea realm. It was not that they couldn't be born, but once they were born, they had to leave the fairy tree realm. This was also the only time when the reincarnation tree would actively expel creatures, because when one's cultivation reached the celestial realm, one would have the strength to cross the starry sky. Naturally, there was no need to stay in the fairy tree realm. Its many fairy tree realms were only provided for those creatures who couldn't survive in the starry sky to live. For the current Lu Yi, as long as they weren't in the celestial realm, he could kill them all. Everywhere he passed, there would be a rain of blood. Lu Yingying's screams didn't stop since the beginning. It was so noisy that Lu Ye's eardrums hurt. The corners of Yu Yaorao's mouth curled into a smile as she leisurely walked beside Lu Yi. She didn't seem to be making any movements, but none of the insects that approached from the left or right could get close to them. Once they broke through this limit, they would die inexplicably. One rushed forward in a straight line, while the other solved the problems on the left and right. They complemented each other well. She was observing Lu Yi. She didn't know what kind of world the 9 heavens were, but since he could be brought to the reincarnation tree by his elder, it must be a large world. In such a large world, it was impossible to not find a 9th-order Divine Sea Realm Master. However, Lu Yi, an 8th order, had come here, so there were only 2 possibilities. One was that he was stronger than a 9th-order master, and the other was that he had a strong background, so even if his cultivation wasn't high enough, he was still able to obtain this opportunity. Yu Yarao wanted to know which was the case with Lu Yi. At this moment, the 2 of them were natural allies in this fairy tree realm, but if they passed the test here and entered the next stage, they might become opponents. Yu Yaorao naturally wouldn't miss such an opportunity to collect information at close range. After observing for a while, Yu Yaorao quickly determined that Lu Yi was the first possibility. The strength he showed was no worse than a 9th-order Divine Sea Realm Master, perhaps even higher. He thought to himself that this was indeed the case. In a large domain, there would always be some monstrous characters. In a place like the reincarnation tree, there were no experts from any domain who would casually bring people here. If they relied on their strong backing, not only would they lose face, they might even lose their lives. While she was observing Lu Yi, how could Lu Yi not be observing her? Although this wasn't the first time Lu Yi had come into contact with a cultivator from another world, it was the first time he had come into contact with someone from outside the starry sky. As a fellow 9th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator, he naturally wanted to know what kind of skills the other party had. As a result, he found that he couldn't see through her, because Yu Yaorao relied more on the power of her spirit artifact to kill enemies. She didn't show much of her own strength. Of course, this was also related to the fact that the enemies the 2 of them encountered weren't strong enough. Perhaps they would only be able to see their true strength when they encountered a strong enemy. Because they had to clear out the insects in the tree realm, the 2 of them didn't advance quickly, which attracted the scattered insects around them. Looking around, it was as if a storm of death was spreading out from the place where the monster race was hiding, leaving insect corpses everywhere it passed. Lu Yingying finally began to do something. After the initial panic, she didn't forget her duty and began to urge Zhu Yan to enhance Lu Ye's mountain coiling saber. Zhu Yan had a certain time limit and couldn't be maintained for a long time, only about half an incense stick's worth of time, so Lu Yingying had to restore it before it lost its effect. While Lu Yi was killing enemies, he was also silently sensing the Zhu Yan on his mountain coiling saber. Although this wasn't a spirit rune, there was obviously some similarity between the 2, because in terms of results, they could play the same role, just that Zhu Yan's was more powerful. His attainments in the Tao of spirit runes weren't low, and after the second transformation of his talent tree, he had gained the ability to deduce spirit runes. He wanted to see if he could reverse engineer a new spirit rune and make it have the same power as Zhu Yan. This was undoubtedly a bit whimsical, but it was a direction worth working towards. End of this chapter. Chapter 12:21. The fairy's Zhu Yan was very powerful. Most of the insects Lu Yi encountered during his raid were not powerful enough, but some of them were at the divine realm. Sea realm. This was not the land of the 9 continents. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the tree realm was rich and pure. Therefore, it was easy for them to reach the upper realm. It was the same for the insects. Therefore, the proportion of insects at the divine sea realm was not low. The insectoids themselves were covered with a thick layer of carapace, not to mention the divine sea realm insectoids. Those big insectoids, all of them had amazing defense. When Lu Yi killed the insects in the land of the 9 continents, he had to look for their weaknesses. But there was no need for that here. Wherever the Pan Mountain saber slashed, the insect's shells were cut open like tofu. This had something to do with the increase of his strength. But it was undeniable that Lu Yingying's Zhu Yan also played a huge role. After a long, fierce battle, the two killed many insects. Then, Yu Yaorao found a problem. Junior martial brother Lu, the nest is in this direction. She found that Lu Ye's raid direction was completely wrong. It was the opposite of where the nest was. She and Lu Yi did not know where the nest was, but the fairies knew. They just had to ask Wang Tong Tong. They would know. Since they wanted to deal with the insects here, they had to deal with the nest first. Only by dealing with the nest could they get to the root. They had to solve the problem. Not far ahead of her, Lu Yi quickly turned around and changed his direction. Yu Yaorao laughed. He was indeed a reckless soldier. He did not plan anything before he took action. He just went where he wanted to go. She had wronged Lu Yi. If Lu Yi was alone, he would definitely ask Lu Yingying for the location of the nest. Since he had companions, he would let them worry about it. Moreover, he was immersed in the mystery of the Zhu Yan. How could he care so much about it? The fan state in the tree realm was not very big because the fairy race did not have many people, and they occupied such a large tree realm. It was useless. Therefore, among all the tree realms, the fairy tree realm was relatively small. This saved the 2 human cultivators a lot of trouble. They continued to move forward. 2 hours later, a huge nest appeared in their field of vision. The 2 of them knew that they were going to see the truth. It was time. Although some of the insectoids they had encountered before were quite strong, there weren't many of them, and they weren't concentrated enough. It posed no threat to cultivators at their level, but it was definitely different in the insect nest. Normally, it would gather inside. The strongest insectoids in the hive were the insectoid guards, guarding the core of the hive. Yu Yaorao was about to open her mouth to discuss with Lu Yi. It was a coordinated plan, but Lu Yi suddenly flew forward and headed straight for that place. He crashed into the hive. She sighed in her heart. That was why she was most unwilling to cooperate with this kind of reckless soldier. He had no foresight or planning at all. It's all about instinct. Even if she was a genius of the 9 profound world, stronger than the average 9th order divine sea realm cultivator, she still couldn't face such a force. He didn't dare to be careless in the slightest when dealing with an insect nest of this scale. This was probably why the reincarnation tree had arranged for the 2 of them to come to the fairy tree realm. None of them had the ability to solve this problem on their own. Only by cooperating with each other could they succeed. With a loud bang, the saber light advanced, and the insect nest standing on the ground, along with the nearby insectoids, exploded one after another. Yu Yaorao looked up and saw that Lu Yi had disappeared. There was only a pitch-black tunnel leading to the original location of the insect nest. It was a tunnel deep underground. This guy. Yu Yaorao was speechless. She didn't feel much during the negotiations with the fairies before, but since the operation began, she had been passive all this time. She was not used to being led by the nose. Among the divine sea realm cultivators of the 9 profound world, she had always been the one who kept her word. This was the first time she had been led by someone else. This was the first time. But at this moment, she had no choice but to follow. Solving the problem of the fairy tree realm was a task shared by the 2 of them. She couldn't let the armament cultivator take the risk alone. She had no choice but to grit her teeth and follow him, rushing into the underground tunnel. As a Dharma cultivator, she had always been cautious. Before entering, she also activated a defensive spirit artifact to protect herself. She followed the aura of the Dharma cultivator all the way forward. Along the way, there were corpses of the insectoids. She didn't know how many he had killed. However, she was not afraid of losing the direction because there were constant shouts of green in front of her. She didn't know whether it was fear or excitement. Yu Yaorao felt that the former was more likely. She went all the way forward and finally caught up with the Dharma cultivator's pace. The space in the tunnel was not spacious. With the Dharma cultivator in front of her, she seemed to have nothing to do. She could seize the time to recover her spiritual power. There was bound to be a tough battle next. Although she was dragged into this situation by the Dharma cultivator, to be honest, in this kind of situation, in this environment, she could only go straight to the root of the problem. There was not much room for planning and operation. Fundamentally speaking, the test this time wasn't too complicated. The tunnel was very long and extended in all directions. However, under the investigation of divine sense, Lu Yi did not get lost. He killed all the way to the core of the insect nest. It was no different from the insect nests he had entered before. It was a huge underground space. All kinds of powerful auras were lurking here. They were the guards of the insect nest. Suddenly, they were surrounded by meat walls. 17. Like a grain of salt sprinkled into a pot of oil, when he and Yu Yaorao killed their way into this place, the hibernating insect clan guards woke up. They all woke up, hissed ferociously, and pounced toward the two of them. Yu Yaorao's heart trembled because she found that the number of insect clan guards here was more than she had expected. This was undoubtedly a bad start. In such a situation, the two of them should cooperate to kill the enemy. The two of them, one far and one close, was the best lineup. The Dharma cultivator was responsible for blocking in front of her. She activated her technique and moved around. Killing the enemy occasionally, it would be convenient for her to kill after taking control of the situation. However, the Dharma cultivator obviously did not have the intention to cooperate with others. After sensing the vast number of insect clan guards, it was as if he had beaten a chicken. Like blood, he brazenly rushed over. In the pitch-black core space of the insect nest, a dazzling and bright saber light suddenly flashed. The sound of breaking air. The screams of the insect clan and the screams of the green were intertwined. Yu Yaorao sighed. She knew that she could not count on the Dharma cultivator. In the end, she could only rely on herself. She did not have to count on her companions, but cooperating with each other was the best response. As the most outstanding of this generation of the Nine Mysteries world, the fact that the perverted Divine Sea realm could be brought to the reincarnation tree by the elders was the best proof. Compared to the brainless bravery of the Dharma cultivator, her response was much more conventional. First, she activated her power to protect herself. Then her body moved, avoiding the attacks of the insect clan, and began to look for targets to kill. Lu Yi only felt satisfied. What bone carapace, what big and small insects, under the enhancement of the fairy Zhu Yan's Pan-Shan saber. In front of him, they were all vulnerable. For the Dharma cultivator, there were only two kinds of enemies in this world. One was that he could cut off. The other was that he could not cut off. If he activated the sharp tack spirit pattern himself, it might take him some effort to kill these insect clan guards with amazing defense. With the enhancement of the green Zhu Yan, he could basically solve the problem in 2 or 3 slashes. One must know that the insect clan guards gathered here. They were all the elites of the elites. Zhu Yan's enhancement of a cultivator's strength was not, it was just a casual remark. Lu Ye's cultivation was still only at the 8th order, but the lethality of the Pan-Shan saber had more than just increased. It had greatly increased his combat effectiveness. In addition to killing the enemies, he even had the spare energy to pay attention to the situation on Yu Yaorao's side. In terms of the relationship between the two, they were allies. Although there was no substantial cooperation, since they could fight against each other here. It was a kind of cooperation in itself, so it was not good to ignore her. If she encountered any danger, he would naturally have to lend a hand to save her. On the other hand, he also wanted to know the true strength of this female cultivator from the 9 profound world. When Yang Qing brought him here, although he did not tell him much, after asking for a while, he also understood a lot of things. At the reincarnation tree, there must be a gathering of the monstrous cultivators of the various realms. To be brought here by their respective elders, they must be the most outstanding Divine Sea realm cultivators of each realm. This was a good opportunity to understand the strength of the various realms in the starry sky. Therefore, he wanted to know if the cultivators of the other realms were stronger or weaker than those of the 9 provinces. Then, he found that Yu Yaorao was very strong. Compared to the cultivators of the 9 provinces, What she showed now washer strength was not inferior to Yuji's state before she was promoted to the constellation realm. This was very outrageous. Yuji had settled in the Divine Sea realm for hundreds of years to have such a deep foundation, but Yu Yaorao was obviously only in her early 20s. Just in terms of age, the difference was unknown. He had to admit that these large realms could not be underestimated. Although their cultivators were in the upper realms, compared to the 9 provinces, the time to settle in a certain realm would not be too long. However, because of the guidance of stronger cultivators, in terms of cultivation and fighting, he would be able to avoid many detours, and he would also be able to have a deeper foundation. The strength of a cultivator was not only the growth of their realm, but also their own inheritance and the teachings of the sect. If it was only the realm, then what was the meaning of cultivation? In the future, the cultivators of the 9 provinces would not be worse than those of the other realms, but for now, they were still inferior. Of course, for Yu Yaorao to be brought to the reincarnation tree by her elders, it meant that she was the top Divine Sea realm cultivator of the 9 profound world. Comparing the general situation of the 9 provinces with the top of the 9 profound world, it seemed a bit unfair. Moreover, Yu Yaorao was currently in the state of being blessed by the fairies Zhu Yan, so her combat strength was higher than hers. Her normal state was higher. But if the possibility of her not using her full strength was excluded, then her strength should be about the same as Yuji's. They were almost on par. So in the end, the 9 provinces was not bad. What the 9 provinces lacked now was only the top combat strength, the kind of person who could guard the 9 provinces. The strong person who could not let the 9 provinces be disturbed by external forces. Yang Qing could not be counted. He would leave the 9 provinces sooner or later, and Lu Yi could faintly feel that this time would not be too long. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.